Hi, my name is Lyric, and I definitely have not had a YouTube video for over a year, and this is definitely not a sequel to a reaction video I did 2 years ago that I was intending to do once a week, and now it's been 2 years. That is not something that has happened. Shut up. Let's go. We're continuing the ultimate unsolved mystery iceberg. Basically, just gonna be me and yapping about a bunch of mysteries. Because basically, how this format goes, he's gonna go through a bunch of unsolved mysteries and talk briefly about them. Typically, in the last video, he talked to them about for like maybe a few minutes, and I'm gonna maybe yap a bit more about my thoughts. And if I know anything more about the case, then I'll yap a bit more about it. But yeah, we're here to chill, kind of relax kind of video. It's gonna be a long ass video. The original video is 2 hours, and I like to yap like a motherfucker. So, um, yeah, we're gonna get into this.
In this video, we will be
Sit back,
exploring the
relax, grab some
entire
popcorn.
second tier of the largest unsolved mystery iceberg ever made. The entire iceberg has over 1,000 entries, and in this second tier, we will explore the horrific case of a woman basically addicted to murder and insurance fraud who got away with it for way too long. To space mysteries, creepy, eerie stories.
Yeah, I do like that in this video of the unsolved mystery iceberg. I was kind of expecting it all to be like true crime kind of stuff, but he does kind of talking about more like, cosmological mysteries in science. So it's kind of mystery as a broad term, which I do really like. It makes these videos a lot more interesting. It's just in general things that are a mystery to us.
And a serial killer crocodile? We will explore missing persons, serial killers, hoaxes, cryptids, creatures, paradoxes, and much more. This video contains a ton, as it is a supercut minus the intros and outros of every video I've made in the second tier of this iceberg. And please bear in mind,
yeah, this iceberg I think might be the biggest iceberg I've ever seen anyone do, because he makes the individual videos, which are like 30 or so minutes long, and then he puts them together into the tier videos, and then there's like 11 tier videos out, and I think each of them progressively get longer. This is part 2, and it's 2 hours long. So I think overall this iceberg might be like over 24 hours of total video long, which is insane. Make sure to subscribe to Connor's Curiosities. Put him in the description. He's a bit of a smaller channel that I'm reacting to here. I really want you to go support the original creator on this one. Watch some of his other videos that I'm not reacting to. Definitely, I don't know if he has a Patreon or something, maybe support him there. Whatever you do, please support this guy, because he makes these long-ass iceberg videos, and he's not getting enough recognition, in my opinion. Definitely go support this guy.
A little bit earlier on in my channel, so these videos might lack some of the quality.
He brings that, Wendigoon doesn't make these specific type of videos anymore, so I feel like if you're trying to look for that more early Wendigoon type of videos, this might be the guy you should be looking for, these iceberg type videos.
But with all that being said, please enjoy this supercut of the second tier of the largest unsolved mystery iceberg. Without further ado, grab a drink. My choice today is English breakfast tea, and join me as we explore the unsolved mystery iceberg. 2007 Siberian orange snow. So this was an area of about 500 square miles in Siberia, where in 2007 they received an orange snowfall. It affected about 27,000 residents, was oily to the touch, and had about 4 times the normal level of iron.
I would guess, my first guess here would just be some fucking evil company, just pouring fucking chemicals into the waters and whatnot that gets evaporated, pushed back down. That's what I imagine. That's my first impression of what I would guess would cause something like that.
There were many theories about its origin, one of which being a massive sandstorm in the neighboring Kazakhstan, but we don't...
If you have any problems, by the way, this is my first time making a video in over a year. So if you have any problems with, like, if you think the video's too quiet, or I'm too loud, or I'm too quiet, video's too loud, anything like that, please put in the comments what you think I could be doing better with these reaction videos. If anyone's still watching, yeah, I'd really appreciate that.
Don't fully know what actually caused it. The abduction of Violet Ripken.
Yeah, so he talks about that real quick. Yeah, so I'm guessing that was just a chemical spill that kind of got covered up by the company or whatever that caused, chemicals to be fucking raining from the sky. Here we go, abduction of Violet Ripken.
Oh, this was a strange abduction of a 74-year-old lady, Violet Ripken, in 2012. She was the wife of a professional baseball player, Cal Ripken, and on the morning of July 24th at 7 a.m., she entered her garage to head out for breakfast when she was confronted by a man with a gun who had been waiting waiting for her. He restrained her with tape and put her in the back seat of her own car. Then he started to drive. Violet lived alone and was quite independent, so for the next few hours nobody actually knew she was missing. The kidnapper kept telling
That happens when old people fucking die. They don't live with anyone. And they got like bills on auto pay, whatever. They just fucking sit there and just straight fucking rot, bro, until someone, tries to get their house or whatever. They fucking find just a skeleton on a couch. I don't know who it was. There's some old, there was some woman that like died in the 60s and was found in like 2010 or something. Like, it's insane.
Violet that he wasn't going to hurt her, and he kept to his word. He simply kept driving and stopping off at various places to buy things with Violet's credit card. Soon, a massive search was started.
So just financial
After
incentive?
driving around for 23 hours, Violet was found in the back of her car, which had been abandoned just a block from Violet's home. She was perfectly fine, except a little shaken, and the kidnapper hadn't hurt her in any way or demanded a ransom. It seemed.
I mean, he did kind of leave her in the back of a hot car and then just kind of fucked off. But so I'm guessing maybe if they hadn't found her, she probably would have, might have died. But I mean, good that she was found alive. I mean, yeah. I mean, all he did was trying to steal some money. It's just like a really complicated version of a robbery. Yeah.
Like he just wanted to do a bit of shopping. The man, along with his motives,
What did he
has
buy?
never been found. And
Can you not go through her credit card history and like, when was this? Was this somewhat recent? Can you not just like go through her credit card history, say where she shopped, get the security camera footage of when she bought stuff with that credit card? Like, this feels like it'd be something that'd be really easy to catch. I don't know how the hell you don't catch this guy.
it's still a mystery how he was able to abandon the car so close to where Violet lived, when by this point the area was absolutely swarming with police on the lookout for Violet and her car. Invisibility cloak? Ada Constance
Inside job?
Kent. This is a bit of a creepy one. So Ada Constance Kent was a wealthy lady who lived alone in a cottage in Essex, England. And in the summer of 1939, she vanished. The door to the cottage was found unlocked, with the remains of a meal on the table and an open copy of Romeo and Juliet on a chair near the fireplace. The case then went completely cold until 9 years later, when there was a mysterious deposit into Ada's bank account. So the police went back to the cottage to search for new clues, and they found a fully clothed skeleton next to the bed. Next to the skeleton was an empty bottle marked poison. They later determined that the skeleton
What the
found
fuck?
didn't even belong to Ada, and that skeleton is yet to be identified. So there are possibly two dead women, one of which, Ada, has never been found, and the other, the skeleton, has never been identified. As I said, pretty creepy one. Agent 35.
What? I don't know. Dude, when it comes to like shit happening in the 1930s, like murders, I'm guessing that was like, it was just so much harder to find shit. I mean, there would probably be some DNA evidence than nowadays. I don't know. Yeah, I'm guessing a guy killed two people, including one of them being Ada, and then was doing something with her bank accounts, and then was kind of like taunting by putting like one of the bodies back. I don't know. I have no fucking clue.
This was a codename for a female spy in the American Revolutionary War. She was one of the first spies for the United States and was thought to have had a major hand in exposing Benedict Arnold as a traitor for the British. Her actual identity is unknown, but there have been a few theories about who she might have been. There are a few references to 355 in pop culture.
Yeah, so this is very cool. I haven't had to defend stuff because we've talked about true crime and stuff. Now it's more, this is like a historical mystery. Like, we don't know who this historical figure was, you know what I mean?
And it's a fun little topic to read into if you like this sort of thing. Alexandra Palace's wartime television demonstrations. So after World War II started, the BBC television service suspended all of its broadcasting to the public from the Alexandra Palace in London. This was partly so that the German planes couldn't use the signals from the transmissions in order to help navigate around London and England. But over the next 6 years, 2 demonstrations would be recorded in Alexandra Palace in secret. Both of them were aired live, but whereas the 1945 one was highly documented, with singers, comedians, actors all participating, the 1943 show has no official record, and only very minor pieces of evidence actually exist. There are photos that show BBC engineers and makeup artists filming in Alexandra Palace.
So it's kind of a lost media kind of thing?
But there's very little visual evidence of it, and no documentation. So what exactly...
Lost media does really interest me. in general. You might watch a couple lost media type videos because that's some of the most interesting form of mysteries right here. Because it'll be something that's so insignificant that no one kept, any, backup of it or anything. And yet now because it was so insignificant that it's lost, it becomes so interesting.
Was being filmed there in 1943 is a complete mystery. The Alphabet Murders. This one is very sad. This was a string of murders of 3 girls aged 10 to 11 in the 1970s
Fuck.
New York. They're called the Alphabet Murders because each girl
Dude,
killed
70s, the 1950s to the 1980s was like the prime time for serial killers, at least in America, bro. There was so many, like, name a serial killer that comes to your mind. Most likely they were operating between like the 50s and the 90s, maybe, yeah, 50s to the 80s, maybe a bit into the 90s, before technology started getting really good. And, it became a whole lot harder to be a serial killer. Now we get mass murderers instead. I just got monetization on my channel. This is not good. This is not gonna get monetized. I'm talking about fucking mass murders in like the first 5 minutes of the video. Um, but yeah, like if you name any serial comes to your mind, most likely they were operating in the United States from the 50s to the 90s. It was like a absolute like prime time for serial killers for some reason. It's just I think it was a mix of having a high enough population, high enough like cultural like unrest that like caused people to go maybe a bit more insane, and the technology not being as good, but also having a media presence where like people felt like they were famous for being serial killers. I feel, you know what I mean? Like there was still like that was when TV started to come into a place where like, oh, I'm a serial killer. I can see them talking about me on TV, and it kind of gave a sick satisfaction in a sense. So it was like a that I think that's why in that period, like it was a middle point between I can be famous for becoming a serial killer, but I'm also the technology is the technology is good enough that I can be famous for being a serial killer, but the technology is not good enough to get me caught. That's why in that time it was such a prime for serial killers.
11 in the 1970s New York. They're called the Alphabet Murders because each girl killed had the same first and last initial, and they were found in a nearby village or town with that same letter. So Carmen Colon was found in
Some autistic
Churchill,
guy.
her 2 initials and the
It was some autistic guy that did it 100%.
location, all starting with C. Wanda Velkovich was found in Webster, and Michelle Mainzer was found in Macedon. Each girl was first abducted, then assaulted, and then strangled to death. These were absolutely horrific crimes, and the fact that people with this level of evil in them actually exist out there makes me both sad and angry sometimes. Anjing Ajak. This
What do you think of the chances you've passed someone who's like a rapist or a murderer who hasn't been caught, like in public? Like, do you think, like, okay, you're walking in the mall, what are the like, how many people would you estimate in your life that you've walked past that are a murderer? I think there's a good chance I've walked past at least one without knowing.
is a myth of a giant werewolf in Java, Indonesia. It is incredibly
We're getting into cryptozoology here as well. Wow, all different topics. This is great.
clever and deceptive. And
Yeah, the main reason I like doing videos like these is because they're just great talking points. It's just a bunch of list of stuff that you can just great talking points to go on for. Like any one of these topics could be its own video, but we're just kind of listing talking points around this subject that we can, yap for, which I think is great for reaction videos personally.
changes from its human form into its werewolf form in order to kill and eat people. The word anjing actually means dog in Indonesian, so I guess this is more like a were-dog. Doesn't seem so bad when you put it that way. Aisha Degree. This was a really sad case of a 9-year-old girl who went missing in North Carolina 2000. For unknown reasons, she just packed her bag one morning and left her home. She was soon spotted walking along a highway in extremely heavy wind and rain, but when a
2000? I mean, it's probably not likely at that time she would meet someone online. Because that's what I would think now if, like, a child just randomly left their home, assuming their family situation wasn't, like, all that bad, but I don't know.
motorist stopped and turned around to try and help her, she immediately ran off the road into a wooded area. This was the last anyone ever saw of Aisha. Almost 2 years later, her bag, which was still fully packed, was found in a construction site nearby. It kind of looks like she was attempting to run away, but 9 is normally a really young age to want to do that, and she seemed to have a pretty decent family life. For whatever reason, she seemingly left her home and neighborhood willingly, and was either killed, abducted, or is living her life.
I mean, some mental health issues can probably stem from pretty young, of like, I don't, like, I don't know. Like this seems like a mental problem of you just wanting to run away into like the woods or some shit, that you would experience later. But I maybe can start earlier for just like a one-time thing. I don't know.
Somewhere out there to this day. The Atlas Vampire. This was the case of a 31-year-old prostitute named Lily Lindstrom, who was found dead in her apartment in Atlas, Stockholm. She had been dead for 2 or 3 days and was found naked on her bed with her body completely drained of blood. There was a ladle found nearby, and police suspected that whoever had killed her had then drained all of her blood and then used the ladle to drink it.
You would kind of have to be like a doctor or something to do that, right? I mean, you you put someone in front of me and ask me to drain all their blood. I wouldn't know how to fucking do that. You know what I mean? There'd be blood everywhere. I wouldn't know how to fucking do that.
Even though this was all the way back in 1932, if it was a
32.
vampire, they might still be alive today. The attempted bombing of Richard Singer.
That's
In New Zealand, 1937, prominent criminal defense lawyer Richard Singer arrived home via taxi at around 6 in the evening. He left the taxi and walked through his front gate when there was suddenly a huge explosion with rock, metal, and flames flying everywhere. Richard was badly injured, but it's thought that the fact that he was swinging his arms as he walked through the gate meant that his right arm was up at the time of the explosion, and this likely saved his life. His arm took some of the more direct hits, which, had they not been blocked, might very well have killed him. No
Shit.
one, not even Singer himself, had any real clue who the attempted killer might have been, and analysis of the bomb was done and suggested that the bomb wasn't timed or triggered, but rather manually lit and then thrown at Singer as he walked through the gate. But neither Singer nor the taxi driver saw anyone on the scene. 2 weeks later,
Got no
Singer
security
received
footage?
a letter saying there would be another attempt on his life. He was convinced that this was a hoax and wasn't actually from the bomber. There was no further attacks, no one was charged for the crime, and this case still remains unsolved. Babes in the Woods.
He's a public defense lawyer. I mean, kind of, I say, just investigate who the hell he was, going against in his lawsuit cases. You know what I mean? I'd probably guess one of them.
This phrase references a children's tale of 2 children who are abandoned in a woods and later die and are covered up with leaves. There have been a few murder cases named after this tale, but one that I found was in 1953 Vancouver. The bodies were of 2 boys, and no one knew who they were or where they came from. Decades later, a woman called Ali Brady discovered a photograph of her grandmother when she was young, alongside 2 of her brothers, who she never knew existed. Her grandmother now had dementia, so in order to find out more about these brothers, Ali's great uncles, she did a 23andMe DNA test. Eventually, through a few different channels, Ali's DNA was tested against DNA of the 2 boys, and it was a family match. These were the brothers of her grandma. This one is a bit unique and also a bit sad, and no one to this day knows what happened to those boys or who killed them. The Babushka lady. This was
This one.
as of yet
JFK.
unidentified lady who was present during the JFK assassination. She was holding a camera and wearing a headscarf, similar to that worn by Babushka.
My hot take is that it's actually kind of this should be the normal take, but now I say modern day, I actually think this is the hot take that I do think actually Lee Harvey Oswald was the sole assassinator of JFK with no CIA intervention. Yeah, there's a great what's that YouTuber's name? Oh God. There's a Go look up JFK conspiracy debunked. There's like a really like 4 hour video by this YouTuber who's a historian. I think he really breaks it down really good about how there's just no evidence you can put forward that really puts anyone at the scene other than Lee Harvey Oswald, who is like 100% at the scene, and all the stuff around Lee Harvey Oswald, the conspiracy would have to be so elaborate for no reason. Like when the CIA kills people, like I'm telling you, bro, it's not all this elaborate, bro. Like they could have didn't like. There's just no way all this elaborate plot could have worked out, and there still be no real evidence behind there being a conspiracy. You know what I mean? There'd be some trail left behind, you know what I mean? So yeah, no, I don't think the JFK shooting was a conspiracy. You can fight me on that in the comments.
Or old ladies in Russia. When the actual shooting starts, everyone around her is panicking and running around like mad, but she just stands still with the camera to her face, seemingly taking photographs or footage. She then crossed the street and joined.
That's got to be. I think that might be like the holy grail of lost media, like getting whatever was on that camera. Like whatever video or photos she took, imagine getting that, bro.
the crowd on the grassy knoll, which is an area where nothing suspicious happened at all, so there is no reason for you to search for JFK assassination, grassy knoll. Her and the footage from her camera were never seen again or identified. Although there have been a few ladies that have come forward saying it was them, their legitimacy has been questioned over the years, and so officially she is still unidentified. The Baghdad Battery. This was the name of 3 artifacts that were found together in Iraq 1936, and some think they were used as some sort of rudimentary battery. This could have been used in some sort of electrotherapy or electroplating, which is a really cool method for plating one metal with another. It is composed of a clay jar with an asphalt stopper,
Got some nice architectural mysteries now.
and an iron rod, and when filled with an electrolytic solution like vinegar, produces about 1.1 volts. Strangely, this
Archaeological,
artifact
sorry,
went
not
missing
architecture.
during the 2003 invasion of Iraq, leading some people to believe that they were covering up evidence of an advanced ancient civilization. This is a really
Nah, I don't believe the whole ancient civilization thing. Watch Mini Minute Man. It's a go-to YouTuber as well. Yeah, most evidence for the ancient civilization thing is just people misunderstanding that ancient people were not dumb caveman brains. You know what I mean? Like they were just as intelligent thinking humans as us. They just hadn't had, you know, they weren't helped by the work of previous generations. You know what I mean? Like if you grab like a few thousand people out of the earth today with no prior knowledge, like they could do like they could get some stuff done, you know what I mean? Like they could do a lot of the stuff that ancient humans did, especially when a lot of this stuff took hundreds of years, you know, under a whole society working like humans built computers, dog. Like look at the situation right now. Look at my setup right now. I got a microphone. I'm talking into this thing and it's putting it into this computer, which is a bunch of rocks that we put together to make it think. Right? I'm recording with a camera, okay? I have a piece of metal right now that's on top of an Amazon box, which is where my camera's set up on, okay? That is pointing a piece of metal pointing at me that's now making you, from wherever you are in the world, be able to see me here. Not going to say where my home is, but presumably a long way from where you are right now. Like to act like humans couldn't put like rocks together or something, you know what I mean? Like, is just like ridiculous. People see, you know, a big rock formation, they go, oh, they were so advanced. Oh my gosh. You know what I mean? Like, yes, they were advanced for what they had, but like not to like the level where you have to assume it's aliens. And also, the ancient civilization thing largely has a big root in racism as well. You have to admit, because, yeah. Because you know you never hear a motherfucker claiming the ancient Romans or whatever, the ancient Greeks, you know, had aliens helping them. You never hear that. You never hear how, like, you know, Plato must have had aliens talking to him to make all this great philosophy. You never hear that. It's only the, you know, the darker skinned people, civilizations that have these allegations, you know. You know, aliens just hate white people, I guess. They're only helping out the brown people. Let me make sure I'm still recording. Okay, yeah, we're good. Haven't done this in a while. Gotta make sure everything's good.
Artifact and topic that honestly shows just how ingenious some of these civilizations were. Becca. This was a strange case in New Mexico, 1991, involving a...
Always some strange shit going on in New Mexico, bro. Roswell, the first nuclear test, Breaking Bad.
motel room. The room was booked by Eduardo Collin, a local truck driver, and 2 days later, when Eduardo had failed to check out, security went to his room, which was locked from the inside. They eventually made their way inside, and though they didn't find Eduardo, they found multiple bottles of alcohol and a dead woman hanging from the shower. There was a photograph of her with a man on the table, and when motel staff were shown this photo, they identified the man as Eduardo. So obviously they went in search of Eduardo, but after finally finding him, he wasn't alive either. He had apparently died from natural causes a few years back. When Eduardo's family was shown this photograph, they said the man in the photograph wasn't Eduardo, and they had no idea who this woman was. In 2001,
he had a brother or something?
Police received a tip saying this woman's name was Becca, but no more information was uncovered. It seems to me like whoever this man was, he was clearly not Eduardo, but had simply used Eduardo's name and details to book the room. But whatever else...
Yeah, I'm guessing he ID'd him, like identity theft on him, did some horrible stuff to a woman, locked the door from the inside, left out of a window or something, and then just dipped, and then tried to frame Eduardo, maybe? I don't know.
happened that night and who Becca actually was remains
Why would you
unknown.
leave a
This is a
photo
bit
of
of a long
yourself
one,
though?
so I hope
I
you
don't know.
enjoy this semi-deep dive. Belle Gunness. This was a Norwegian-American serial killer who killed at least 14 victims in Illinois and Indiana between 1884 and 1908. Her main motive seemed to be money, and the list of
Man, you know how easy it was to get away with murder in fucking 1908, bro? You could shoot a motherfucker, and then, like, as long as no one directly saw you do it, bro, you're probably fine.
insurance payouts this woman had is insane. In 1884, Bell married Mads Sorensen. They owned a candy store together, which later burned down. Then their home burnt down. And, of course, both of these were heavily insured. Then 2 babies in Bell's home died from inflammation of the large intestine, a possible symptom of
Is she just, like, riffing off insurance schemes or whatever? Like,
poisoning. She never appeared to be pregnant, and neighbors often gossiped about whether these were actually her children or not. But, of course,
so she just stole some. What are we saying? She just stole some children and then killed them for insurance, saying, "Oh my god, my children are dead." What? See, that's how you get away with shit back in the day. You could never that's just not something you could happen. You could not just like steal some kids and then claim they were your kids in modern day. Like no, like they would be some shit. They'd be like, "Well, buddy, these are not your kids. We have no record of you ever giving birth. Like, what are you talking about?"
had life insurance policies on both of them, and so collected a large sum after their deaths. Then, her husband, Sorensen, had, on July 30th, 1900,
Hey, I'm not saying it's ethical. I'm not saying you should do it. But technically, by law, you can put a life insurance policy on anyone. It doesn't have to be you can put them on anyone, okay? Go down to the local nursing home, ask them to sign a petition. Because the only thing you need is to get their permission, okay? You go down to the local nursing home, you say, "Oh, can you sign this petition?" You know what I mean? Someone Someone's gonna do it. I'm guarantee you someone's gonna do it. Like I don't know if anyone's done that yet, but I'm telling you someone's gonna do it. I'm not saying it's gonna be me. I'm not saying it should be you. I'm just saying someone's gonna do it, bro.
2 overlapping life insurance policies. One was expiring the next day, and one went into effect on that day. So, of course, he died of a brain hemorrhage that exact day. Bell then collected both insurance payouts and bought a pig farm in Indiana. 2 years later, she married Peter Gunness, and a week after that, Peter's infant daughter died of unknown causes while in Bell's care. 8 months after that, Peter died of a skull injury. After, as Bell explained it, he reached for something on a high shelf and a meat grinder fell on him. This is like Looney Tunes. The coroner suspected murder, but it didn't go any further than that. And of course, she collected a large insurance payout. Over the next few years, she basically lured guy after guy to her home.
How many life insurance payouts do they give you before they just don't allow you to have any fucking life insurance? Life insurance is like the most suspicious insurance to take out repeatedly, and like when suspicious circumstances happen, like it's the most obvious way to like see a motive, you know what I mean? Like I feel like in modern day, if they see you like take out life insurance on like 3 people that die like around like they see you like take life insurance out on 3 people whatsoever, like they're like, "Oh, so you've just it's that you like they're putting you on a suspicion list regardless if there's any evidence," you know what I mean?
Home on the pig farm through adverts for marriage in local papers. These guys would never be seen again and would sometimes take out large sums of cash just before they went missing. Bell would actually go on to keep stuff of theirs, like expensive coats and luggage trunks, saying that the guys had come to stay but then just left without telling her. Yeah, very likely. A carpenter that was doing work on Bell's farm noted that there was more than a dozen luggage trunks in Bell's home, likely from the guys that she had killed. In 1908, Bell's farm burnt down, and the bodies of Bell and her 3 children were found in the fire. Except Bell's head had no body, which isn't a common injury caused by a fire, but with the technology available at the time, it was a little hard at first to determine whether this was or wasn't Bell. On the grounds of the farm, police found burlap sacks found with dozens of legs, arms, torsos, and heads. Before the fire, one of the brothers of one of the victims told Bell that he would be visiting the farm very shortly to find his brother, which is thought to have pushed Bell to burn down her farm and fake her death. And despite the coroner declaring that the body found was 5 inches shorter than Bell, she was declared dead and was never seen again.
So what was this like it had to be like someone else's body. Though, right? What, should she cut off someone else's fucking head and claim, and then like dress her up in her clothes, claim it was her? Like, what the fuck? How do you like fake your own death with a whole body, bro? What?
Beowulf. This is a really cool, very long poem, and is one of the oldest surviving English language.
Yeah, I read this in school, and there's also a movie coming out, directed by a big director. I don't know, forgot who it was, but there's a movie, Beowulf movie coming out sometime this year.
Stories. It tells the story of a young warrior coming to the aid of the king of Danes to protect his kingdom from a monster called Grendel. He kills Grendel, then kills Grendel's mother, then returns to the kingdom with treasures and one hell of a story. He is later crowned king and holds the peace for 50 years, until a dragon then threatens the land. Beowulf eventually slays the dragon, but dies soon after. It's a pretty cool archetypal story, thought to be written in the 8th to 11th century, but it's suspected that it was originally passed down from generation to generation with only the spoken word, meaning no one really knows how far back the story of Beowulf actually goes. Beowulf is a cool name though. Burmea. This is a phantom island found, or rather not found, off the coast of Mexico. Phantom islands are islands that appear in maps, often older maps, but
My idea behind this of how these islands like appear in maps that don't actually exist is that like when you're a cartographer, right, in this time, you haven't actually been to all these places, right? You're just kind of going off what people are telling you. My idea behind these is just that there was like one misunderstanding of like a guy thinking he was one place but he was in another, or or someone was at one island and they placed the island in the wrong spot, and then it was just kind of a game of telephone that just kept going on and people just kept believing. Oh, how do I know that island there? Because that guy told me. Well, how does he know? Because that guy told him. And like one misunderstanding creates this big like ripple effect. I imagine is how this happens. Because like how you make a map as a cartographer is you just go off what other people are telling you. You know what I mean?
that later can't be located. Burmea appeared in several maps from the 16th to 20th century, but in recent surveys and searches, it's as if it never existed. Could it have sunk due to shifts on the ocean floor, rising sea levels? Did it ever actually exist at all? Or, as some people think, did the CIA destroy the island in order to expand their rights to that area of the ocean? The CIA are pretty sneaky and
I do hate as a socialist. I do absolutely despise the CIA. Um, yeah, I'm not saying it's not something the CIA wouldn't do. It's just like that seems a bit ridiculous. I mean, how the hell do you sink a whole island? You know what I mean? Without, especially without people knowing. You know what I mean?
murderous, so I wouldn't put murdering an island past them. Bigfoot. This creature goes by many names.
Yeah, if the island was a socialist leader of another country that was planning on that the U.S. was planning on replacing with a fascist dictator, capitalist fascist dictator, then I would 100% assume the CIA did it, but they're not, so I don't know.
Such as skunk ape, almus, yeren, yeti, yowie.
How is Bigfoot like down here, bro? I feel like Bigfoot should have been like one of the first 5 ones you talked about, bro. No way any of the ones this guy talks about so far are more neat, are are less niche than Bigfoot, bro. Like Bigfoot's like the guy. Everyone learns about Bigfoot when they're like 5.
Sasquatch, but all depict the same creature. A large, muscular, dark-haired...
How have we not had a Bigfoot movie, by the way? I don't know any Bigfoot movies. Seems like something they would 100% have made. I don't understand. Think about it now, they actually don't have a lot of cryptid movies in general. Like, I don't know whether about a Mothman movie or a Loch Ness Monster movie. You need to make more cryptid movies, bro. I feel like it'd be a good idea.
bipedal ape. Bipedal ape. Picture a gorilla, but walking upright. This one has a huge
Iconic picture,
following
bro.
in some communities, and there are so many theories and debates about whether it's all a hoax, whether it's a result of government DNA splicing, an ancient species that has lived in hiding away from the humans, or, one of my favorites, an alien species that seeded life onto Earth. This species later lost its ship, and as humans continued to multiply and evolve, these aliens were forced into seclusion and hiding, eventually devolving slightly.
The thing about Bigfoot, bro, is like, yeah, back in the day, it was like feasible to believe in Bigfoot, right? Modern day, bro, we've had like since like the late 2000s, every fucking human has had a camera on their person at all times. And you're telling me no one's taken one clear video of this fucking 8 foot tall motherfucker. Like, I don't know, man.
due to their environment and lack of technology. This, some people
That's
say,
what Neil deGrasse Tyson made that point about UFOs, because like I believe obviously because the universe is so large, there's like a next to nothing chance that there's no aliens out there. I do not believe aliens have ever visited Earth, especially not in any recent time, because I think Neil deGrasse Tyson, he made a great point here. Is like, once again, every human, majority of humans on the planet have a fucking disposable camera with them at all times now since about the late 2000s. Been about 20 years now, and like not one person has actually gotten a clear shot of a UFO. It's always on some like military radar or something. You know what I mean? Blurry as hell. You know what I mean? Not one person has gotten a photo of a UFO that's been in 720p. You know, at least, you know.
is why apes were chosen to receive this intelligence, because we are essentially offsprings or mutations of this Bigfoot species. As you can tell from just this small segment, there are tons of wild theories out there, and it's kind of refreshing going through all the craziest ones and imagining all the different possible scenarios. But I think this one will remain with us for a long time. The brain in a vat. So I won't go into this one,
I
as
know about
we've
this
done
one.
very similar ones like the Boltzmann brain and the simulation hypothesis in previous videos, but think The Matrix.
I think
It
therefore
basically
I
says
am.
that you are a brain in a vat, and that this entire universe doesn't exist, and is all just a result of electrodes stimulating this brain. It's a pretty creepy one. The Butcher of
Yeah, it's just the thing about saying you don't really know what exists or not exists. You can kind of go off what you see. You know what I mean? You don't know if you're just like a simulation or, you know, yeah, anything like that.
Mons. This was a serial killer in
Last Thursday theory, the idea that the universe was created last Thursday and there's no way you can prove it wasn't.
1996 and 7 in Mons, Belgium. Police found the dismembered bodies of 5 women in 12 separate plastic bags found on roadsides and embankments. All the victims were of a somewhat poor background, and they all frequented the area of the Mons railway station. The killer was never found and to this day remains unknown. Camera heads. This was a reference to an early creepypasta before they were even popular, posted on 4chan in 2009. The post reads, "What's a camera head? I was walking home through a nearby gully and came across a weird..."
I might get confusing Camera Head and Siren Head. They're making a Siren Head movie. That's like has apparently like a bunch of funding behind it and everything. They're also making if you're a big fan of YouTube like horror stuff, they're making a Mandela Catalog movie. If you know the Mandela Catalog, if you watch Wendigo or whatever. Mandela Catalog movie produced by Steven Spielberg and directed by the original creator of the Mandela Catalog, Alex Kister, who isn't the greatest person, but you know it's still kind of good that they let the original creator direct it like they did with Kane Parsons in the back rooms. But yeah, um, yeah.
stack of rocks and a torn envelope with some writing on it. It appeared to have been written in charcoal or ash. It said, "I killed a camerahead. What's a camerahead?" On the next line, "It took Trevor." And the last line, "Get help if I don't come back." And there was a mini DV nearby. This was all that was on it besides static, though I had to watch it a few times before I found this clip. Who took this video? A camera head sounds really silly if it's a monster with a camera for a head. The user attached a link to a YouTube video that he had uploaded, which contained the contents of the cassette that he had found. After this post and this YouTube upload, he is never seen from or heard from again. The video itself contains mostly static, but depicts the person or thing taking the footage, creeping up on these 2 boys, and then chasing and attacking them. If these camera heads exist, the video seems to be its memory that was taken from the camera head after it had been killed. Pretty creepy stuff. To add to all of this, the actual story and the posts were lost for quite some time, until a deep search and investigation done by several forum members years later rediscovered the whole thing. Cannibal Holocaust Piranha Scene. So
I know about this one. Cannibal Holocaust is one of the considered one of the most disturbing movies of all time. If you watch Wendigo and Disturbing Movie, Iceberg, it was on there. It's basically a movie that was it's kind of like an OG found footage movie, even before the found footage genre really exploded with the Blair Witch Project and then the 2010 horror movies. And the Piranha Scene, like basically the Cannibal Holocaust movie is like a found footage type of movie, with a bunch like mockumentary type. And a bunch of horrible shit happens in the movie, and because that genre didn't really exist back then, people thought it was real. And they thought the actors actually died on fucking set, and like the FBI or something like showed up to the director's house, having to ask him if the movie was real or not, and he had the actors show up and be like, "No, it's not real." Um, But yeah, and I know the piranha scene was one of the most devastating scenes because I think yeah, I think this one they actually no, I don't think they actually used piranhas. I think it was just I don't know. I don't remember. I'm trying to remember. I can just play the fucking video. Did they actually use piranhas? I know it was like a very disturbing scene, but I don't. I think it was like they like go into the water, they get back, and like they're just a fucking skeleton. Um, yeah.
Show any photos of this one as it is truly horrific, but Cannibal Holocaust was a horribly brutal, bloody, and taboo film released in the 1980s depicting 4 protagonists going into the Amazon rainforest to study a cannibalistic tribe. It's honestly some truly horrible stuff, but one scene in particular was extra horrible and somewhat suspicious. This scene involved a member of this tribe being tied to a log by the other members. He was then lowered into a body of water infested with piranhas, and when they pulled him up, his entire lower leg had been eaten to the bone. However, this scene was never in the film, with only a single still shot being in some promotional footage. Director Ruggero Deodato said he didn't film the entire scene, but simply took a single still shot for publicity. But some people have said they were actually there when the scene was being filmed. So, who's lying? On top of this, some people have questions regarding how realistic the scene actually looked, leading some people to believe that the scene was actually real and filmed with a real tribesman really having his leg eaten. But after realizing how real it looked, the director decided to delete all evidence of it and to not include the film in the scene. Celebrity number 6. This was a Reddit post in which the user asked a question about their curtains. It was a set of curtains with illustrations of...
Yeah, so this one never made sense to me. Cause like they have so this was a Lost Media where they had a curtain with a bunch of celebrities on it. They're trying to figure out who the hell this celebrity was meant to be, and they eventually found it. It was like some Brazilian model or something. But I never understood this because like why would you sell a curtain with like celebrities on it that are like so niche that like people legitimately have to spend like a year-long search to find out even who it is. You know what I mean? I feel like if I'm selling a curtain with a bunch of celebrities on it, I would make it like well-known celebrities that you want to buy the curtain to have them on your curtains. You know what I mean? Like Johnny Depp. You know what I mean? Leonardo DiCaprio. You know what I mean? Like those are the types of people I'd want to put on a curtain. Why am I putting these niche-ass models on a curtain?
Celebrities over the last 10 to 15 years. Slowly, they were all identified, except for one celebrity, simply known as number 6. There were many suggestions about who the celebrity might be, but none of them really fit the image perfectly, so this one is still unanswered. Charles Peck's phone...
It's been answered since this video came out. How long ago did this video come out? 2 years ago. Yeah, so it has been answered since. I forgot who it was, but it was some model. Yeah, that has been answered since.
calls. This was a
So that one's solved. Put this off this iceberg. That one's solved now.
strange case where 49-year-old Charles Peck was involved in the tragic Chatsworth train crash. He died instantly, but his phone made 35 calls after his death to his son, sister, brother, stepmother, and fiancé. When they answered the calls, all they heard was static, and after the phone calls stopped, Charles was found just an hour later underneath the rubble. The coroners determined...
I imagine he actually did survive for some time and tried to make extra calls, but his phone was just like completely fucked over and didn't work, so he couldn't hear him.
that he had died instantly, and so wasn't alive when these phone calls were made. But maybe he was trying
If he did die instantly, then I don't see how, but I think maybe they just got it wrong. He didn't die instantly.
to contact his family from the other side. The Chicago Tylenol murders. These were a series of poisoning deaths in 1982 Chicago.
I know
The
what
victims
these.
had all consumed Tylenol branded capsules, which had been unknowingly laced with potassium cyanide. The 7 victims all died shortly afterwards. It is generally thought that the culprits took some pill bottles off the shelf and added the poison to some of the capsules. These deaths prompted one of the largest pharmaceutical recalls ever, and a push to strengthen anti-tampering laws and packaging. Johnson & Johnson, the
I imagine you can't do that anymore, right? I imagine it's definitely a bit harder to do that, right? Like the way they package medicine and stuff, I imagine that you can't do that now.
manufacturers of Tylenol recalled over 31 million bottles and stated that they would exchange any bottles of Tylenol capsules with solid Tylenol tablets. The killer was never identified or caught, and to this day it remains a mystery. The Cleveland Torso murder, also known as the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run, which personally I think sounds a little bit cooler. I am not endorsing murder, I'm just saying It sounds cool. He was a serial killer active in the 1930s Ohio. He killed at least 13 victims, possibly up to around 20, most of whom were from the area known as Hobo Jungle. This area was known for its gambling, prostitution, and drinking, and all the bodies were disposed of in the neighborhood of Kingsbury Run. All of the victims were beheaded, and most were dismembered in some way, with the males often being castrated. Bodies were often found up to a year after they had been dumped, and as with a lot of these unsolved cases, sadly, the killer was never found. The Connecticut...
I mean, it's the 1930s, so I don't know.
This was an unidentified was never found. The Connecticut River Valley Killer. This was an unidentified serial killer. Oh, there's a lot of these. Who killed at least 7
A lot of serial
victims
killers out
in
there,
New Hampshire
unidentified.
in the 1980s. The remains of 2 women were found in 1985 and 6, leading police to investigate other murders and missing peoples in the area. They eventually found 2 previous cases, one in 1978 and one in 1981, that shared similarities to these killings. The killings were mainly done with a knife, with a few of the victims having their throats slit.
Not saying you should try it, okay? Not saying you should do this, but I'm just saying, just on a pure strategy basis, if you're a serial killer, I feel like you would have a lot better of a time not getting caught if you just were like trying new shit out every kill. You know what I mean? If you were just not doing any motif, so they couldn't connect it as the same killer. Like if you were just trying shit, you know, finding a new way to kill people each time. You know what I mean? Rather than them catching on that this is the same guy. I mean, you wouldn't be famous that way because they wouldn't necessarily know it's a serial killer. So if you're a psychopath, that's kind of partly what people want out of it, you know. But I'm guessing some of the unsolved murders are just serial killers who do that. You know, they don't have a motif. They try out new shit so they can get away with it. You know.
There were a few sketches done of potential suspects, but the investigators never really got further than that. The contents of the Library of Alexandria. So,
haha, I'm a history major. This is gonna be stuff that's gonna be brought up to me. Yeah. So the Library of Alexandria. It got burnt down, and people say that it had like so much knowledge of human history that we would in like 1,000 years in the future if the Library of Alexandria had not burned down. But it's actually not true, really. So the Library of Alexandria, it was, had a fuck ton of knowledge and shut in it, right? And it pretty much entirely burnt down, right? And a lot of historical text got ruined, but most of the texts that got ruined in a forever sense, like we can't get them back, were fiction text. Most things that were nonfiction, with regards to science or history or stuff like that, had copies of it in somewhere else in the world. Because if something's as important as that, as like real world stuff, they made multiple, of course not copies because they didn't have a copier. They just had a guy wrote it down, wrote it down again. But it would, like pretty much all of the knowledge that was actual, scientific knowledge or the sorts, mathematics and stuff was copied somewhere else in the world where scientists could go and, build upon that. So the burning of the Library of Alexandria did not really set us back nearly as much as people say when it comes to actual technological innovation and scientific knowledge and human knowledge in general. The main things that got permanently destroyed from it were historical fiction text. So a lot of great, mythology and stuff like that, old works of art and stuff, those got permanently destroyed. But pretty much all of the, nonfiction stuff that'd be really important for like humanity in itself, it was not permanently destroyed in the Library of Alexandria, and it is over exaggerated.
So if you like history, this one is fantastic. The Great Library of Alexandria was one of the largest and well-stocked libraries in the ancient world. Before the days of the internet, I know, hard to imagine, libraries were immensely important. If you or someone in your local village didn't know a thing, that was it. You had no real way of getting other knowledge, unless you visited a library. Just imagine, 2,300 years ago, these huge chambers and rooms filled with vast amounts of books.
This is the epitome of lost media right here. This is the lost media goldmine.
Documenting everything from ancient stories,
ancient
to
lost media,
historical accounts, to medical and engineering notes and techniques. I mean, it's basically like the internet, but worse. But for those days,
I have something very similar I would compare the Library of Alexandria to. I think it was it Sony, or it was one of the big music labels that had a big vault of, recorded music, on physical tape, the original masters. It burnt down. Like, I think it was in the 90s or 2000s, and it lost so much original tapings of stuff, including like Nirvana. You're never gonna get a newly remastered Nirvana record anymore. It's just not gonna happen out of the original tapes because the original tapes don't exist anymore. They got burnt down, so you're never gonna get a remastered, Nevermind album or whatever, and a bunch of stuff like 50s records and stuff. Anything under that label, the original masters, so much of them got burned down. And so it's a huge lost media stuff, especially if there was something that wasn't as popular that people don't back it up as much, potentially a lost forever. That's what I compare the Library of Alexandria to. So it's like tragic that we lost all this music and stuff, but like humanity was not set back as a species because we lost all that music. It just kind of really sucks
Was incredible. It contains an
from an
estimated
artistic standpoint.
400,000 scrolls at its height, and Alexandria soon became known as the capital of knowledge and learning. Many, many great and ancient philosophers, doctors, poets, scholars either moved to or worked in Alexandria simply to have access to all of this knowledge. And despite many people's beliefs that
It did
the
make stuff a lot
Library
more
of Alexandria
inconvenient, I'll
was
say
burnt
that,
down in a
that it
great
wasn't all in
fire,
one
it
place.
likely just slowly declined, as during the reign of Ptolemy VIII Physcon, intellectuals were purged from Alexandria and never really went back in the numbers that they had before. Julius Caesar accidentally burned part of it during his civil war, but it was
That's the
likely
famous
quickly
burning.
repaired, and over the period of Roman rule, just slowly continued to decline in popularity and membership. But with all of the contents that were removed, burnt, or stolen, we don't even know half of the stuff that was housed in this library, or what ancient secrets or knowledge it held. Corpse quakes. This is a mental affliction that has been found to affect gravediggers. One story tells of a gravedigger in the 1900s who, one day while on his job, suddenly became quiet and started to shake. The other gravediggers in the cemetery started to make fun of him until they realized that he was serious. They suggested that he should just go home, but he insisted on staying and digging the graves. As he was digging, he was shaking constantly. A few days later, these other workers had the corpse quake too, and a week later, they all stopped work entirely. He couldn't do his
I'd imagine it'd be some disease caused that just is on dead bodies, is what I imagine.
job as he
Dead bodies, I imagine, have a bunch of diseases that you can probably get if you're working around them.
was constantly affected by this every time he went to dig. And after being home for more than a week, he seemed to be getting his spirits back. Until his son randomly said the word spade. Just seems like his son hated him. And he suddenly went back to being quiet and shaking. Eventually the man became sick and died, and the other two men eventually moved away. So they never found out what caused it. Cosmic string. So this is a complex topic to fully explore and understand. But
Some fucking
imagine the
astrophysics
early
shit now.
universe as water in an ice cube tray. Now imagine when the Big Bang happens, that the ice cube tray is immediately flash frozen. Often you would find cracks in this ice due to the rapid change of state. So this is essentially what cosmic strings are. They are a theorized crack, if you will, in space caused by the immense heat and energy during the Big Bang. These are theoretical,
Wow.
extremely thin or one-dimensional, and have an incredible mass relative to their size. It is thought that these cosmic strings may have caused early galaxies and solar systems to clump together and form. This topic is very advanced and goes way into the depths of quantum physics.
When it comes to like mysteries and astrophysics and stuff like that, like if scientists like at NASA don't know what something fully is, I just imagine there's like no way in hell I'm ever going to understand it. You know what I mean? Because I'm like they're like those are a level of smart that's just way beyond me. If they don't understand it, I'm sure as hell not going to be understanding it. Okay, so I'll just know about the topic, and I'll listen to what they tell me. You know what I mean?
astrophysics. But as always, if you want to learn more, check it out. Dale Williams. So this is a semi-long one, but I felt like I needed to explore it a bit more in order to do it justice. In 1999, a family was swimming in the waters of the San Miguel and Dolores rivers. While swimming, they spotted a white pickup truck underneath the water. They called the authorities, who quickly linked this truck to a man who had gone missing 6 weeks earlier.
This happens a lot of the time when people like car accidents or whatever, or drunk driving. They just drive into water, and then people just don't find their car. 'Cause people don't be looking in a lot of waters. I know there was a very famous case where someone on Google Maps, or like Google Earth, they were looking at Google Earth and they saw in the lake this like yellow thing in the water, and they were like, "Yo, what the hell is this yellow thing in the water?" And it turns out it was a car of someone who had went into the water like 30 years ago, and they found it. And there was just a fucking skeleton in there, you know. It happens actually relatively frequently. You know what I mean? Which is tragic. It's probably the number one uh way you can die in a car crash and then just not be found. You know what I mean?
earlier, Dale Williams. However, when they
Which makes it scary when you think about like how easy people are when people kill people and put them in water and stuff. Like it makes you think about how many people are probably the missing people are probably just killed or in the water or even just died in an accident involving water and they just haven't been found because people take a long time to find cars in water. You know how big a fucking car is, you know what I mean? I imagine it's a whole lot harder to find just a person, that's like decomposing and whatnot. I mean, it's tragic.
to a man who had gone missing 6 weeks earlier, Dale Williams. However, when they searched the truck, they found no sign of Dale. 6 weeks earlier, Dale was reported missing by his wife. He hadn't come home one night, and the next morning, she drove down to his auto shop and found no sign of Dale. She found a car with its bonnet still open and tools on the side with the front door unlocked, almost like he was working on a car and then stepped away for just a few moments. Very strange. It was later confirmed that Dale had...
It's weird when it's like no sign that they were like even going anywhere or anything. Like when it just seems like they just got taken out of existence, like in the middle of doing something. I mean, it's like horrifying.
Been to see a local member of his church, and while he was there, received a phone call from an anonymous woman claiming to require roadside assistance. And being an auto repair shop, Dale didn't actually do roadside assistance, but he was always willing to help out people in need. After this, he left to go help this woman with her car, and that was the last anyone ever saw of him. It was later determined that
seems like a
Dale's
setup.
car didn't accidentally go into the river, as there was no skid marks, but that the truck was slowly pushed and steered into the river. The family put up missing posters over the next few weeks, but...
So, I imagine the call was a setup. They killed him, hit him somewhere else, and then try to hide evidence by putting his car in the river. Because if he wasn't in the car, then I imagine that's not how he died.
Found that just a few days later, the posters were torn down. So they put them up again, and again they were removed.
Dude, what is the vendetta against this guy, dude? He owns a car repair shop. Why is someone doing this whole elaborate plan to get him away? What the fuck is this?
Police put up CCTV camera next to one of the posters. They found that the culprit was a local man and former friend of Dale and his wife. 12 months earlier, Dale had helped this man's ex-wife move to another state without telling him. This obviously angered him, and a month after this incident, Dale kept finding strange things outside of his auto repair shop, like torn up photographs that were actually stolen from inside his...
I imagine, knowing what we know now, I'm happy that he helped that fucking ex-wife get away, bro. If you're this mad over your someone helping your ex-wife move, bro, that you fucking murder a guy, yeah, I imagine you weren't that good of a husband, my guy. What the fuck is wrong with you?
Shop, and several 22 caliber bullets and a 22 caliber revolver that were both stolen from inside the repair shop. This man was obviously questioned about Dale's disappearance, but had somewhat of a solid alibi for that day. But to add to all that, the lady who called Dale for the roadside assistance has never come forward, nor has she been identified. And the call was made from a stolen phone. So it's likely,
yeah, I imagine, yeah, it's a setup.
This anonymous lady set some sort of a trap for Dale,
yeah.
But whether she acted alone or what eventually became of Dale is still a mystery. Darwin Scott. This was...
I imagine it was a two-person thing, you know? I don't know. I mean, did anyone hear a gunshot or anything? Like, was this in public? Like, yeah, I mean, at this point, there's probably no way of knowing.
Was actually the uncle of famous cult leader and murderer Charles Manson. He was found dead, stabbed 19 times, and pinned to the floor with a butcher knife in 1969. His killer is still unknown, and with...
I mean, I can probably imagine fucking Charles had something to do with it, bro. I mean, that's a pretty fucking gruesome murder. That doesn't happen. That doesn't just happen fucking any day, you know what I mean? It's not like, it's not an everyday occurrence to see someone stabbed 19 times and have like a fucking butcher knife. I imagine fucking him being the cousin of Charles Manson had some, or uncle was Charles Manson had something to do with it.
Darwin Scott having a long rap sheet, being in and out of prison multiple times over the years. It was always hotly debated whether this was the work of his nephew, who was clearly capable of it, or of his criminal lifestyle catching up to him. David Chase.
Yeah, it could be either. If he was in and out of prison, probably made some enemies. I just think it's too much of a coincidence, bro. Your nephew is Charles Manson, and then you die in like the most horrific way. Like I can't, I just cannot not think that there's some connection there.
This one is kind of spooky. On October the 15th, 1995, Phil Harris, a private investigator, apparently heard a voice in his sleep. This voice said, "I'm David Chase. I was murdered. I want you to investigate my murder. Go buy the Sunday paper." Phil woke up and was in disbelief. David Chase had died 4 months earlier. He was found having drowned in a nearby river, and Judy, his wife, had always suspected that he was murdered. Phil then met with Judy, and he apparently had knowledge of David and Judy's relationship that was super personal and that no one else knew besides David and Judy. This convinced Judy that David was in fact contacting them from the other side. David had apparently said that he was going off for a swim with a raft in the river. Most of his clothes were seemingly ripped off, and he had suspicious cuts on his legs. His wife was convinced that his clothes were actually cut off to remove some evidence, and that the cuts were from the knife used to cut off the clothes. Phil apparently said that David had been speaking to him on a regular basis and told him of the entire plot. David had met up with a colleague at a bar for a drink. He detailed how he died, how David and this man had got into a fight, how his clothes were removed, the surrounding scenery, and the fact that there was a witness at the scene. This, of course, isn't evidence that would hold up in a court of law, and I call ghost to the stand. And soon after, Phil died of a heart attack, essentially freezing the case and leaving it up in the air. No one has been arrested for David's death, and we don't know if Phil was just a bit loopy, or if David really was contacting him from beyond the grave.
I mean, I'm not religious, so I wouldn't really believe stuff like he's contacting him from beyond the grave or whatever, just from that. But I mean, there's a lot of weird details and stuff. I would find it interesting. Yeah, and him dying of a heart attack literally in the middle of the case is interesting too. I don't know what the explanation would be for that, but I wouldn't believe the whole contacting from beyond the grave, whatever.
Was a 14-year-old boy who went missing in Quebec 2009. Around 9 a.m. on February 10th, David left on foot to the bus stop that would eventually take him to school, but that was the last anyone ever saw of him. His mother suggested he might have run away as he was being bullied in school, but there's no evidence for his running away or his abduction. He seemingly just vanished without a trace. Diane Suzuki.
That's horrible when that's like the only details of the goddamn case. Literally nothing. Yeah, I mean, I have nothing to go off there.
A 19-year-old student in the University of Hawaii at Manoa. She disappeared on July 6th, 1985. This case was one of the most notorious criminal cases in Hawaii and was the first time the Honolulu Police Department used advanced for the time technologies like luminol. The case eventually went cold and her killer was never found. The Doodler. This was an unidentified serial killer, believed to have been responsible for between 6 and 16 deaths in 1974 and 5 San Francisco. The killer was a young 6-foot black man of slender build, who would meet his victims at gay bars and clubs, and would sketch his victims before stabbing them to death. There was an unidentified man who was questioned by the police.
Gay at this time, definitely gay bars were a big target for serial killers to not get caught because police didn't care as much about gay people, you know what I mean, or murders that involved them, you know what I mean. That's in the book. The book It actually that I read by Stephen King. I say like it's an unknown book, but in the original book It, there is something similar to that. And Jeffrey Dahmer did the same thing. You know what I mean? Didn't get caught for a while, so yeah.
They considered charging him as they were fairly sure that he was guilty. But the 3 surviving victims didn't want to appear in court in order to testify against him. They wanted to keep their identities unknown, likely out of fear, but we don't know the name of the suspect or the survivors. And very little is actually known about this case publicly. But the likely suspect for these crimes did walk free and was never charged. Doomsday Stonehenge. This one is...
I know this one. It's in Georgia, right?
A set of slabs that appeared in Elbert County, Georgia. They were
Yep.
found in 1970.
Yeah, I know. So lore I know about this is that I learned this from Wendigo, and I keep bringing him up. But like it's like from some religion or something that says like the Earth population shouldn't exceed like 800,000 or something, and like this it's like a certain level of rules, and there's a bunch of conspiracies behind it, and I know someone took the conspiracies a bit far because they literally like committed a terrorist attack against them or something, and they blew them up decently recently, like after the Wendigoon video. Like I think the Wendigoon like mentioned it in conspiracy Iceberg, and then after that, like a year or so after that, they got blown up. I'm not saying Wendigoon was the cause. I'm just saying the timeline. You know, they got blown up by just someone who thought they were evil or whatever. Um, yeah, I think they're still standing. I don't know though.
And are set up like a Stonehenge of sorts. Carved onto them are 10 guidelines or rules in 8 modern languages and 4 dead languages. No one knows who carved them or put them there, but the guidelines read as follows. Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance
500
with
million.
nature. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity.
Here's the thing I don't understand when people who think this is like some really evil thing, because they're like, oh my gosh, they're trying to keep the population under 500 million. And it's like there's like the Illuminati or whatever. They're trying to keep the population. It's the Freemasons, you know. It's the Jews or whatever that people say, right? They're trying to keep the population under 500 million. It's like if they're really trying to do that and they have all this power, they're clearly not doing a very good job. It's like what are they doing to keep the population under 500 million, bro? Like technology is still improving. The population is still going up, and it hasn't stopped going up since like the 1300s. You know what I mean? They're clearly not doing a very good job if that's what they're trying to do. You know what I mean? Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity, unite humanity with a living new language. Yeah, they're clearly not doing that well of a job at that either. Rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. Protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Like, most of these things are not even evil things to do, by the way, either. Like, it's not... I don't understand the people that are, like, claiming this is some illegal Illuminati shit. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. Balance personal rights with social duties. Praise truth, beauty, love. Seeking harmony with the infinite. Be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. Like, yeah, literally nothing here except maybe the keep under 500 million is, like, a bad thing. You know what I mean? So I don't understand why people think this is so evil. And even the 500 million thing, they're clearly not trying to do that. I don't understand. I just don't understand the conspiracies around this. I do see how it's weird that we somehow don't know who the hell made these. Considering how like well made they are and like in so many languages, but like it's not like I don't understand the whole conspiracy thing behind it.
Unite humanity with a living new language. Rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. Protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. Balance personal rights with social duties. Prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. Be not a cancer on the earth, leave room for nature. Theories about these stones range from a new world order, calling for the culling of humanity down to 500 million, to them being of satanic or extraterrestrial origin.
Those damn satanic people trying to leave room for nature on the world. God damn it.
Drake and Josh pilot. This was the lost and partially found.
Hey, see, dude, this is so funny when they have the mysteries and then it's like literal murders, then just like, oh, we don't actually have the Drake and Josh pilot. I'm pretty sure it did get released though, didn't it? Because I'm kind of caught up in the lost media space. I think this did get released recently, like got found recently.
Original pilot of Drake and Josh. This was filmed before the series was greenlit by Nickelodeon, and some of the events in the episode were written slightly differently to how they came out in the later pilot. The lost pilot had Stephen First playing the dad, instead of the later Jonathan Goldstein, and since we only have the partial footage released, we don't fully know what the other differences might be. Der Eisener.
I'm gonna look this up real quick. I think it got found, didn't it? Let me make sure. I don't want to feed y'all some misinformation. Hold up. Did it not? Am I tripping? Lost Media Wiki. You always gotta hit up the Lost Media Wiki. That's how you find these things, because it always puts a status on found, partially found, completely lost. Oh, I'm done. I guess it was... Other pilots and stuff that got found, it's only partially found. You don't have the full thing still. Damn, there's a lot of other TV show pilots that were lost for a while and then got found again. The famous one being, I think, most famous is the Backyardigans one, where it was live action, and there was the Family Guy pilot and stuff. Like, there's a bunch of old pilots that were lost and got found. I guess the Drake and Josh pilot I just assumed was one of them, but it's not.
Or the Iron Man. This is an old iron pillar partially buried in the ground. It is located in a German forest near Dunstable.
I sneezed my headphones
the pillar
off.
stands just over 1 meter high and goes about a meter into the ground. It is a popular meeting place for people to just stand around and drink coffee next to, and it was first mentioned in the 17th century as being a dividing point between two areas, but it was thought to have been created sometime in the 1400s, though no reference to it from that age exists. It was originally placed somewhere else, but was moved to its current location in 1727. El Fausto. This was a strange one. On July 21st, 1968, El Fausto, a 14-meter cargo boat, and her crew, 3 men from the Hernandez family, left from El Hierro to La Palma, 2 Canary Islands in the Atlantic. Just before they left, they took on board Julio Garcia Pino, who asked if he could get a lift to see his sick daughter in La Palma. So the crew obliged, and at 2:30 a.m. set out on their 61-mile journey.
That's not the time I would be setting off on the journey, my guy. That just does not seem like a good time.
When they failed to arrive at their estimated time of 10 a.m., the owner of El Fausto sent out an emergency message that the boat was missing. 4 days later, a British ship traveling from South America to the Netherlands found them in the Atlantic, 108 miles from La Palma. They reported that the crew was well, and they accepted food, fuel, and cigarettes, but they refused the British ship's offer to tow them to a nearby island, which is a bit odd, but one theory suggests that the British ship wasn't entirely honest with their account and maybe knew more than they were letting on. So, given this new information, a new arrival time was set.
If they don't end up surviving this or seen again, I imagine they got like blown away in a storm, and the British ship found them, but then just like low-key trying to jack their shit, and they were just like, instead of saving them, they tried to jack their shit. And then they came back, oh, they just didn't accept for whatever reason. It's like, oh, well, maybe because you were fucking trying to murder them. You know what I mean? That's what I imagine.
And once again, they failed to make it. Given this new information, a new arrival time was set, and once again, they failed to make it. So a new search was started, and once again, nobody could find this boat. It was declared missing for a second time. 2 months later, on October 9th, an Italian ship reported finding El Fausto in the middle of the ocean, more than 620 miles from La Palma. When they boarded the ship, they found a dead man who was partly mummified. This was Julio, and there was no trace of the other men. There was no evidence of violence or damage on board, and Julio had actually kept a diary, which the first mate actually handed over to Spanish authorities, but only received back a page or 2 from the diary. The crew attached a cable to the boat to tow it to Venezuela, but that night the boat suddenly sunk, snapping the tow cable. Now, there is a bunch of detail in this case. Firstly, the tow cable snapping, which takes a considerable amount of force, and theories for this range from it being sunk by a submarine in order to hide some evidence, or an attack by a large sea creature. To add to this, the entries into the journal that we do know of ended with Julio writing, "Don't ever tell our son what happened to me. You know that God wanted this fate for me. I love you." But we have no idea what he wrote in the rest of the journal. Some context for all of this is that at the time, Spain was under a fascist dictatorship, wasn't aligned with NATO or the Warsaw Pact, and the Canary Islands were a poor region that often housed...
I don't know why I got the timeline for this in my head all messed up. For some reason I was thinking about this in like the 1500s. That this shit was like during the 1900s. So yeah, I don't know what could happen at that point. Cause I thought this. I don't know why I was thinking like this was like Spanish Empire times, not fucking middle of Cold War. Yeah, I don't know. Now that makes things a whole lot more complicated because that makes them like have a whole lot of more resources they could have done to prevent this, or I don't know what. Yeah, I have no. This one's bamboozled me. I have no clue what the hell could have happened here. We just don't have enough.
Did the men aboard
Don't have enough
Fausto
pieces.
genuinely go off course, resulting in them seeing something they shouldn't have seen? Were the crew of the British ship being fully truthful about their encounter with El Fausto? And what was written in the rest of Julio's journal? These are all very good questions with sadly very limited answers. The El Tanin antenna. This was an object taken in a deep-sea photograph in 1964 Antarctica. As you can see, the object is standing upright and looks very solid and straight. Not what you'd usually expect from something in nature, especially this deep underwater. This has led some people to think that it is either alien technology or advanced ancient technology from a lost civilization. Some people have suggested that it is actually this, a type of carnivorous sponge, but I don't buy it. It was definitely aliens. Entombed animals.
I mean, it just makes no sense that there'd be no other evidence other than this one antenna in the ocean for aliens or ancient Antarctican civilization, bro. It's probably, I don't know, some creature. I don't know. There's some explanation for it. That's not fucking aliens.
These are stories of animals, mostly frogs and toads, being found in entombed stuff like stone or concrete, and being alive after being trapped in there for huge periods of time. These reports go back a long time all over the world, and the idea of freeing a frog from its tomb got weaved into some stories and tales. But supposedly this was debunked in 1820 when an English geologist encased several toads in limestone and buried them in his garden, because that's something that normal people do. A year later, he found that most of them.
The science was a lot more effective when before we had, you know, empathy and rights. We could just be like, oh, I wonder if I fucking put these toads in a prison in a stone and then I bury them underground, will they live or not?
Were dead, but some were alive.
Just
So,
for
what
shits and
does
gigs.
he do next? Obviously, he buries them for another year. And unsurprisingly, this time they were all dead. I think this guy just likes murdering frogs. Existence of aliens. Now, this more
I
than
imagine they can just kind of like live for a short time. You know what I mean? Most time when they find them, they've probably only been there for a short time. You know what I mean? That's what I imagine.
any time I've said this is one that I could definitely make hour-long videos on. The evidence is so plentiful and wide and varied, and we've actually gone over a bunch of them in previous videos in this iceberg, including logical arguments for aliens like the Fermi paradox, to physical evidence such as crafts and tools, to potential sightings. I think this would be a really fun one to either do a live stream on or a deep dive video and just explore it a little bit. One of my theories is that life was seeded here by aliens and that they now live in colonies deep underneath the ocean. They mostly just observe us, but occasionally do come up to interact with us. And that is my theory. So, without further ado, grab a drink.
My theory would be that aliens definitely exist somewhere in the universe, but no intelligent life from outside Earth has ever visited Earth. There's just not. I just don't see the evidence for that.
My choice today is oolong tea with milk, and join me as we explore the unsolved mystery Iceberg. So to start off with, we have Flight 19. This was a group of 5 torpedo bombers that went missing in the Bermuda Triangle 1945. They lost contact with the US Navy. And
everyone as a kid was horrified of the Bermuda Triangle. I thought it was going to be way more of a problem in their life than it was.
all 14 airmen on the planes were sadly lost. The search boat that went out to look for them was also lost, as were the 13 crew members aboard this one. It is thought that the group leader mistook some small islands offshore for the Florida Keys after his compass
just went the wrong direction,
resulting in them heading straight out into the Atlantic Ocean into the Bermuda Triangle, and they were never seen again. Them getting lost seems to be somewhat figured out, but the fact that so many ships and planes go missing in the Bermuda Triangle is kind of strange. Exotic matter.
Yeah, the main thing about the Bermuda Triangle people need to realize is that if you, it's just an area where a lot of ships and stuff go, and ships and stuff tend to go missing quite a bit. So, an area where a bunch of ships and stuff are going, you're gonna have a lot of missing ships and whatever, you know what I mean? That's mainly the reason behind that, you know what I mean? Like, there's a bunch of missing ships from all over the world, you know, in certain areas that have, you know, just as much missing stuff as the Bermuda Triangle, you know what I mean?
So this one covers a wide array of topics. Some we've discussed already, like dark matter, and some we may explore further down the iceberg. Exotic matter is basically unusual matter found in physics. This could be matter that's poorly understood, matter that's purely theoretical, matter that would violate the laws of physics, or the highly technical term for all of this, just a bunch of weird stuff. First legitimate 3DS SD card hack. So this was a Screamer video uploaded to YouTube in 2012. The video no longer exists, but as you can tell from its title, it was a jump scare video that lured people in with the promise of free unlimited 3DS games, which at the end of the day is all any of us really want. And after
That's all I
turning
could
on
ask for in
3DS
life.
and clicking more images, there is a jump scare with loud noises and a flashing image of Jeff the Killer. I actually just
Jeff the Killer himself is a mystery in itself because we don't know where this image comes from. We don't know the original image that this obviously got photoshopped into. There's a huge community of people trying to find this original image. It's from at least the early 2000s, most likely of an Asian woman, a Japanese woman, that people like photoshopped to make her, look ugly and make fun of her. That eventually turned into the creepypasta. People making a story behind it of Jeff the Killer. But we don't know where the original image come from. The guy who made the original story, made up where it came from. Like he made a fake story, and then it was discovered that he was lying. That he didn't make the the guy who made the original story for Jeff the Killer claimed that he made this original image, but he just straight up lied. Like he just straight up faked it. Because it got found on like Japanese forums earlier than when he said he made it, like years before. So like we found it in like Japanese forums, a less edited version of it in the early 2000s. But we don't have the original image that it got photoshopped into, and it's like one of the biggest Grizz lost media because this is such an iconic image. If you were on early 2010s internet, in the horror creepypasta scene, and yet it's like such an iconic image, we don't know where the original one is.
love this old internet stuff. Fluorescent Freddy. This was a huge...
Also, so you're talking about like a lost YouTube video there. YouTube is probably one of the holy grails of lost media because like if a video has, especially early YouTube, maybe now a bit less because people maybe download them a bit more, but like if someone doesn't download and re-upload them, like a YouTube video is just lost forever. Which there's like a notion around the internet like once it's on the internet it stays there forever. It's really not true, man. A lot of stuff on the internet's gone missing. Once it's gone off, because for once you delete it, the only way it stays around the internet is if someone saved it. So only things that people care about enough to save really get preserved on the internet. If something wasn't as interesting enough that people like preserved it, it's lost. Being on the internet does not mean that it's never gonna get lost. You know what I mean? Even though that's kind of some people's presumption.
Creature that has only been spotted once ever. It was in Indiana, 1965.
Fluorescent
by
Freddy.
A group of teenagers in a wooded area. The creature was around 10 feet tall, covered in bright green hair, and had red glowing eyes. The sighting was reported in a local newspaper and then never covered again. Frankfurt Jane Doe.
Probably just made it up. Not gonna lie to you if it's only seen one time. I mean, that sounds pretty cool though.
This was a woman's skull found wrapped in tinfoil in 2004 Frankfurt. No other body parts were discovered, but the main suspect, Manfred Seal, died in 2004. He actually died before he could be arrested and was thought to have committed 10 or more murders between 1971 and 2004. Jane Doe being unfortunately one of those victims. Jeff. This was a talking mongoose. I swear, stay with me here. That lived on the farm of the Irving family on the Isle of Man, England.
Love the
This was
cryptozoology.
in 1931, and Jeff told the family that he was a mongoose born in New Delhi, India, in 1852. They said that Jeff communicated to them that he was an extra clever mongoose.
I think a bunch of these mysteries that happened like before 1900 or whatever. I bet a good amount of them are just schizophrenic people. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. I bet schizophrenia is like a big reason for a bunch of mysteries that happened like before we discovered what schizophrenia was. You know what I mean? And they were like, bro, trust me, bro. I saw this guy. His name was Fluorescent Freddy. Bro, I swear he was real, bro. I swear, trust me, bro. I have a talking mongoose from New Delhi, India. Okay, like I bet that's a good reason for a bunch of mysteries of the world, like that happened before 1900 or whatever.
And a ghost in a mongoose form. He would supposedly guard their house, put out their stove fire if they forgot to put it out before going to bed, catch mice, and wake the family up if they overslept. Although there were some accusations of Jeff being the clever ventriloquist work of the daughter, she maintained that Jeff was absolutely real until her death in 2004. We all need something.
2004.
Just a quick word from our sponsor, who is me, as let's
I
be
thought
real,
she was way
nobody is
earlier.
sponsoring these videos. But if you are enjoying it so far, hit the like button, subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and let me know down below what you think of the
Subscribe to
video.
Connor's Curiosities,
Let's
guys.
get
Link in the
back to
description.
The Great Unconformity. This is one of geology's greatest mysteries. It is a gap in the geological record of between 100 million and 1 billion years. The smooth rock below is Precambrian rhyolite, around 1.4 billion years old, and the jaggedy rock above is Cambrian stone, around 500 million years old. This is a huge gap in time for two rock layers that are this close together. This discrepancy occurs all over the world, and there have been many theories, some of them pretty complex, about why this might have happened. One theory suggests that there was a massive uplifting of the Earth's plates and of the supercontinent that existed before Pangaea Rodinia caused the entire layer to be eroded much faster than would normally happen, causing this large gap. That's one theory, anyway. Another theory that I just made up is that aliens came down and stole 1 billion bloody years of our bloody rock, and we wanted back.
How dare they?
Gustave the crocodile. This is a terrifying crocodile named Gustave. He is nicknamed the Man-Eater, lives in Burundi, and is thought to have killed up to 200 people since being born in 1955. It is
Goddamn, Gustave.
20 feet long and weighs more than 2,000 pounds. He was thought to be around
What, is he still alive? What do you mean? How old do crocodiles live? This guy's like 70 years old?
100 years old just because of his huge size. 1,000 pounds. He was thought to be around 100 years old just because of his huge size, but apparently 100-year-old crocodiles are almost entirely toothless, and Gustave had a
I didn't know crocodiles lived this long, bro. I didn't know. I only know the only creatures I know that lived that fucking long are like turtles. There's like a turtle alive named Jonathan, who's like he was born in like 1832 and he's still kicking around today.
teeth at the time. So it is thought that he is instead around 70 years.
And sharks. I know there's a shark. I think there's a shark alive right now that was born in like the 1600s, which is pretty crazy.
Old, and likely still growing and still chomping. The Hall Mills murders. These were the murders of Episcopal preacher Edward Hall and a member of his choir, Eleanor Mills. Both were killed on September 14th, 1922, New Jersey, and both were having an affair with each other. The wife of Edward and her brothers were accused of committing these murders, but were acquitted in 1926. This case was largely remembered for its huge newspaper coverage, making this the most extensive high-profile case in that time period. The wife and brothers were thought very likely to have committed these murders.
I mean, that kind of makes sense.
Very little non-circumstantial evidence to convince a jury, so they were acquitted. The Highway of
I mean, 1922 it's been hard to get evidence. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the affair was them having affairs were the motivation for the murder.
This is a stretch of highway in British Columbia, Canada, that has been the location of 80 plus missing persons and murder cases since the 1970s, mostly of indigenous women. Most of these cases are unsolved, and with the surrounding areas...
It's always, racism and homophobia and, misogyny. It's a good way to get away with fucking murder, because cops don't care as much if you, kill indigenous women versus if you kill a white woman or whatever, or a white man.
Being quite large and remote, the chances of finding many of these victims is sadly very small.
The Highway of Tears is a very sad thing to call that.
So this is a mind-blowing experiment with...
in reference to the Trail of Tears.
Remote, the chances of finding many of these victims is sadly very small. Hilbert's paradox of the Grand Hotel. So this is a mind-blowing experiment with infinite numbers. So imagine you had a hotel with infinite rooms, and you have an infinite amount of guests, one for each room. So your hotel is full, right? Well, if you wanted to invite another guest, you could simply move the guest in room 1 up to room 2, the one in room 2 up to room 3, and all the way up, then room 1 would be open for a new guest. So you've kind of technically added to infinity in a way. Stuff gets really weird when thinking.
You can add to infinity. People don't realize this when they talk about these paradoxes, right? Because I saw the very famous clip of fucking Neil deGrasse Tyson on Joe Rogan talking about this. Some infinities are bigger than other infinities, and people need to realize that infinity is not a number; it's a concept. You can have infinity plus 1 is a bigger number than infinity. You know what I mean? Because think about this. There's an infinite number of numbers between 0 and 1. You know, because you can always break it down further. There's an infinite number of numbers between 0 and 1, but there's more numbers between 0 and 2 than there is 0 and 1, even though between 0 and 1 there's an infinite amount of numbers. Some infinities are bigger than other infinities, and people need to realize that infinity is a concept, it's not an actual number. Like, infinity plus 1 is bigger than infinity.
About and dealing with infinity. Like, think about how many whole numbers exist in the world. There is an infinite amount because it never stops. You can always just add 1 to whatever number you think of. So, how many odd numbers are there? Well, there is also an infinite amount of odd numbers, even though it seems like there should be half the amount compared to the whole numbers. And if you take each
because infinity is a concept, not an actual number. You can't do infinity divided by 2. You know what I mean? Because infinity is not an actual number, it's a concept.
So you have 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, etc. How many numbers would be in this new set? Still infinity. You would think that there would be 10 times infinity, but really it's just infinity. Maths is really fun and maybe slightly scary, but it's a cool topic to get into nonetheless. How to Basic. This is a YouTube channel that posts how-to videos, except they're insane. It starts off fairly tame and normal, then just gets
everyone from the 2010s knows how to Basic, bro.
And messy. A common trend on the videos is just to smash like 100 eggs into whatever they're making. But originally the videos were just tutorials on how to do extremely basic things, like pick up an umbrella or pour a drink, hence the channel name. But over time they just evolved or devolved into madness. The creator of the channel doesn't speak or show his face, so as of today,
shows his legs.
Anonymous. Human bone in Primark socks. This was the case of a human bone found in a pair of socks in a Primark's clothes store in England. This was in 2019, and police say they don't believe this was the result of a crime, but rather this was an unusual, terrifying, and maybe illegal prank done by someone in the third world factory where these socks were made. I don't know about you, but finding something like this would be somewhat traumatizing.
Imagine you're in a Ross or some shit and you just you're just looking at socks and it's just a fucking human bone inside of it. What? I'm so confused by the explanation. What do you mean a prank, buddy? Where did they get the human bone in this third world factory, bro? What? Just for shits and gigs?
This was a terrifying encounter with a creature in 1966, West Virginia. Woodrow Derenberger, a man living in Mineral Wells, was returning from a business trip in Ohio when he stopped to check something in his truck. After he pulled off again, he noticed there were lights behind him, and he thought maybe these were police officers, so he pulled over. He discovered that the lights didn't belong to a car, but belonged to an aircraft that looked like a kerosene lamp chimney. A man then stepped out of this craft and approached Woodrow's truck. Quote, "He looked perfectly natural and normal as any human being. His face looked like he had a good tan. His hair was combed straight back and it was dark brown. And he seemed to have
That's the damn guys from Smile.
His features were very normal. I don't believe he looked any different from any man you would see on the street. But he wasn't normal. He had a large grin and kept his arms folded up under his arms."
I've seen this image before. I never saw where it was. I've just seen this image around before. Because, I mean, look at this fucking image. This is fucking horrifying, bro. Do you see this shit? I mean, this is like peak horror right here.
Armpits. And as he spoke to Woodrow,
Pennywise shit.
His smile never moved. He was speaking telepathically. He asked Woodrow to roll down the window, then asked his name, and then said, "Why are you frightened? Don't be frightened. We wish you no harm. We wish you only happiness." He then introduced himself simply as Cold. Other people, including Woodrow's own family, have reported seeing Indrid Cold, the grinning, man-like creature. And the sightings of Indrid Cold eventually caused Woodrow to go completely crazy, hiding behind curtains in his house and claiming that UFOs were coming to get him. They are coming to get us all. Eventually, his wife divorced him and he died, never making a massive breakthrough on who or what this Indrid Cold was. J.R. Rattray. Joan Rose Rattray was a 6-year-old girl murdered in 1935 Hastings. She was on her way home from school when she was attacked and strangled to death in a nearby creek. There's not much material for this one, but an eerie quote from the end of this article reads, "There was no evidence of an outrage on the child, and no motive or meaning for the crime was ever established. The killer had killed and gone on his way, and to this day he has never been found." The Jameson family. These were the deaths of Bobby, Sherilyn, and...
I mean, when it comes to people that are murdered in the 30s and stuff, it's like the murderers. It sucks because you know the murderer like got to live the rest of his life. You know what I mean? Because they're like pretty much certainly dead at this point. You know they went the rest of their life and just never got caught, which sucks.
their daughter Madison of the Jameson family in the deaths of Bobby, Sherilyn, and their daughter Madison of the Jameson family in Oklahoma. They disappeared in 2009, and their suspected bodies were found and identified 5 years later. No cause of death was ever determined, and no one knows who killed them or why. At the time of their disappearance, the family's truck was found abandoned, a short distance from where they lived, a few days after their disappearance. The Jamesons were not found, but their dog was found, and it was thankfully still alive. In the truck, they found their ID cards, their wallets, their phones, a GPS system, and $32,000 cash. This amount of cash was weird for the Jamesons and led to some theories involving drugs and witness protection. Footage of their home from the day they disappeared shows the family in a trance-like state packing things into their truck, and one item, a brown briefcase, was never found. There's a few theories about this one, but the outcome either way is that this family, including their 6-year-old daughter, all sadly died, and whoever killed them has never been brought to justice. Jennifer Faye.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they knew something was happening, seemed like they were running from something. $32,000 in cash seems like maybe one of the family members was involved in some, criminal stuff. I mean, he would just have 32,000 cash just laying around. That's hella suspicious. Seems like maybe someone in the family was involved in the criminal organization, and they tried to run their family out, to run away, and then maybe got caught up with. You know what I mean?
This was a woman who died mysteriously in 1995 Oslo. She checked into a hotel room under the fake name Jennifer Fairgate, along with a man who listed his name as Louis Fairgate. This man has never been identified, and her death was ruled a suicide by the 9mm pistol found in her hand at the scene. But there was a lack of gunshot residue and blood on her hand, which has led some people to question the suicide ruling. There are some theories to suggest that she was an undercover.
Like she got shot and they put the gun in her hand.
No identification found in the room. The pistol's serial number was scratched off, and most of her clothes had their tags removed, which are all common practices of intelligence agents. Jerome of Sandy Cove. This is a mysterious one. Jerome was a man found on the beach of Sandy Cove, Canada in 1863. He was found with both of his legs cut off above the knees and did not speak either English or French when the locals found him. When he was asked for his name, he mumbled something like Jerome, so that's what he became known as. He was found on the beach by an 8-year-old boy, and his amputations still had bandages on that were only partly healed. He was suffering from the cold and exposure, and no one knew where he came from. He got taken in by a local family to be looked after, and many people tried speaking to him in many different languages: French, Italian, Latin, Spanish, but he didn't seem to or didn't want to understand or respond. They kept him within the community, feeding him, taking care of him, staying with many families for years at a time, and the government of Nova Scotia actually voted in favor of a stipend of $2 a week to support Jerome. He would often growl like a dog at people he didn't like, so it's thought that maybe he had some sort of a brain injury that affected his speech, which would explain him not really understanding languages as well. He became somewhat of a mini celebrity in the community and was well liked by a lot of people. Later on, the Comeau family, who Jerome was staying with, would charge people admissions to see this mysterious man, and they lived quite well off of that income, which seems a bit in bad taste, but apparently Jerome didn't mind it. He was thought to be in his late 20s when he was found, and died in 1912 in his late 70s. Theories of his story range from him being a sailor who attempted a mutiny and got punished with amputation and desertion, to him being an heir to a fortune and subsequently being gotten rid of by someone else who wanted to inherit this fortune. But one historian notes in his book that a few years before Jerome's appearance, there was a report of a young foreigner who fell through some river ice. This was in New Brunswick, and apparently he developed gangrene in both of his legs and had to have them amputated. This young foreigner became known as Gambi, as he kept waking up and calling for gamba, which is leg in Italian. Gambi apparently proved to be a burden for the local people, and it was rumored that a passing captain was paid to take him away. It's possible that this captain just took Gambi to the other side of the bay to Nova Scotia and left him at Sandy Cove. Whichever story is true, it's kind of a sad tale, but it was incredibly heartwarming to read about.
Yeah, it seems like a kind of a sad tale of a guy who probably had some accident or whatever, maybe foul play, that got his legs removed, had a brain injury, probably, or was just, maybe he was fucking autistic or something, and he has kind of lived his life kind of eventually becoming kind of like an attraction, which is pretty sad.
All the communities and families that took Jerome in, loved him, and cared for him. We need more of that in this world. John Doe, number 24. This was a sad case of a black teenager found wandering the streets in Illinois, 1945. He was quickly determined to be deaf and could not communicate other than writing his name, which was apparently Lewis. No information could be found about him, his family, or where he came from. So a judge placed him in the Illinois mental health system, where he became known as John Doe number 24. His name was later changed to John Doe Boyd to allow him to claim Social Security. He later went blind as well and died in 1993 at the rough age of 64, and no more details were ever uncovered about his life or his origins. Johnny Joe Shields. This was the disappearance of a 32-year-old man in Iowa who was heard leaving his home at 2 a.m. December the 15th, 1988, and he was never seen again. He left all of his personal belongings behind, including his truck, and there has been no activity in his bank account since the day he left. So apologies if I mispronounce some of these names. Juvenal Habyarimana and Cyprian Nataria Mira. These were the assassinations of the then
That pronunciation sounded pretty good.
Burundian presidents in These were the assassinations of the then Rwandan and Burundian presidents in 1994. Both were aboard the same aircraft, which was shot down by ground-to-air missiles as they prepared to land in Kigali, Rwanda. The culprit for this attack still hasn't been determined, and it led to one of the bloodiest events in recent years.
Rwandan genocide? Yeah.
This was probably...
I mean, it has to be one person's military or something. It's not like the average person has fucking missiles. They can shoot it on a plane well enough. I'm assuming it was some country's military that didn't want to admit to it. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they thought it was a different plane or something. Maybe it was. Maybe it was. Maybe it was one of the militaries of Rwanda or Burundi that didn't know that their president was also on the plane. They were just trying to kill the other president. So they didn't want to admit to it. That's what I imagine something happened. But yeah, the Rwandan genocide, holy fuck. One of the most brutal things to ever happen. Just period. Stop the sentence there. But especially in modern, the last 30 years. Actually, yeah, kind of close to the last 30 years at this point. Fucking horrific.
A long time coming, and involved two ethnic groups within Rwanda, both fighting for power.
And if you're one of those idiot Holocaust deniers that doesn't think 6 million people can get murdered within 12 years or 6 years, whatever the time period, just do some research on the Rwandan genocide that happened in the fucking 1990s. Okay, I think you'll change your mind pretty quickly.
The Tutsi and the Hutu. This attack on the two presidents, both of whom were Hutu, seemingly reinforced the argument that the Hutu elite had been making for years, that the Tutsi were a foreign people looking to overthrow and enslave the Hutu people. Really, neither side was better or worse than the other, but this led to the Hutu military feeling they were justified in retaliation, and so, starting the next day, they killed an estimated 500,000 to 600,000 Tutsi citizens and Tutsi political...
Within second. Listen to this time
They
period.
were justified
Listen
in
to this time period.
retaliation, and so starting the next day, they killed an estimated
Oh.
5 to 600,000 Tutsi citizens and
Insanely
Tutsi
quickly.
political and military leaders. Karen Silkwood. This was an activist in the 1960s and 70s. She raised concerns around corporate practices regarding health and safety in nuclear facilities. She worked making plutonium pellets, and one day after a routine self-check, she found that her body had almost 400 times the legal limit of plutonium. She was
That's not good.
decontaminated and then sent home. But when she came in for a meeting the next day, she again tested positive, even being found to expel contaminated air from
I imagine there's something really wrong in this facility that's fucking radiating her every time she comes in.
her lungs. So they decontaminated her again and went with a team back to her house. There, they found that several surfaces and items in her home were contaminated too, and a lot of it had to be destroyed. A while before this,
I imagine she contaminated them just by shit on her clothes and whatever. That's what I imagine.
Karen argued that the lack of shower facilities in the place she was working could lead to unnecessary contamination, which she was apparently right about. Karen testified to the Atomic Energy Commission about her concerns. Then, a while later, while driving to meet with a New York Times journalist to spill the beans about everything, she died in a car crash of unclear circumstances. Firstly, all the documents and notes that she was taking to this journalist weren't found in the car at all, and she had twice the
Yeah, that seems like probably the company or whatever doing some shady shit, some Boeing shit. Boeing's done the same thing. Don't kill me, Boeing. But yeah, they've allegedly, Boeing's done the same thing of killing people, whistleblowers and whatever. I mean, yeah. I think her not having any of the documents in her car when she's going to a place to show documents, I mean, that just makes it obvious, I think.
for a sedative found in her blood. She apparently had the sedative while driving, fell asleep at the wheel, then drove off the road, crashing into a wall. She was pronounced dead at the scene, and the documents that she likely had on her as she was bringing them to the journalist have never been found. So it seems like whatever was in those documents and inside Karen's head, someone didn't want the world to know. Kaspar Hauser. So this was a teenage boy in 1828, found wandering the streets of Nuremberg, Germany. He said he had lived his entire life locked in a dungeon and survived off only bread and water. He carried a letter with him addressed to the captain of the 6th Cavalry Regiment. The letter basically said that this boy was given in to the author as an infant, and he taught him to read and write, but never let him take a step outside of the house. It said that the boy wanted to be a cavalryman like his father was, and asked the captain to either take him in or to hang him. I don't know if those are the only choices. There was also another short letter that was enclosed that supposedly came from his mother. This was written to his prior caretaker, the author of the first letter. It said that the boy's name was Caspar. He was born on 30th of April 1812, and it said that his father was a cavalryman of the 6th Regiment, but was now dead. However, analysis of both of these letters found the handwriting to be from the same person, leading people to believe that Caspar had written both of them himself.
Schizophrenia?
And if that is the case, we have even less of a clue as to where he came from. When he was eventually taken to the captain, he could only repeat the words, "I want to be a cavalryman as my father was," and horse, horse. He was taken to a police station, and because he couldn't prove who he was imprisoned as a vagabond. Over the years, Caspar seemed to enjoy telling lies for attention and injuring himself for sympathy.
Sincere from
A
Love
gunshot
Island?
wound to the head, a slice to his forehead, being attacked and bribed by
Oh, what's a Burt Kreischer type beat?
mysterious hooded figures that no one ever saw. So when he was stabbed to death by a hooded figure in town in 1833, everyone just believed that he had stabbed himself to gain sympathy, but accidentally stabbed himself too deep. He had a note from this figure which basically read, "Haha, you'll never catch me," but it had some spelling errors in it that Caspar was known to make. And the note was folded in triangles, which is something that Caspar apparently liked
What?
to do. So it's hard to say really where.
I mean, hey, some people like, some men just want to watch the world burn, bro. This guy just, I don't, yeah, he's probably just a pathological liar, like, love doing shit for attention, whatever, probably a bit mentally ill. I wouldn't buy anything this guy ever said, not gonna lie to you.
he came from or who he was. Theories range from him just being a young kid with no home, so he wanted people to worry and care about him, to him being a royal heir to a throne, but was locked away as a child by someone else who wanted the throne. Eventually he was let loose, not knowing who he was or where he came from. But that's the story of Kaspar Hauser. Kathy came from. But that's the story of Kaspar Hauser. Kathy Page. This was the suspicious death
Willie the Karen
of a
Page
34-year-old woman
from Daredevil.
Texas, 1991. She was found dead in an apparent car crash just 100 yards.
I gotta stop making like jokes and stuff. Because my natural reaction when I'm making reaction videos is to try to make jokes and stuff as my commentary and stuff. If I don't have something that I like know that I can commentate on, but like if we're talking about really dark stuff, I gotta stop making. Oh, Kathy Page, like Karen Page from Daredevil. I gotta stop saying stuff like that.
Hauser. Kathy Page. This was the suspicious death of a 34-year-old woman in Texas, 1991. She was found dead in an apparent car crash just 100 yards from her home. She had no obvious wounds or injuries on her body, and her car was barely damaged. The drinks that were in the front seat weren't even spilled. She wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and yet she remained in a reclined position. Something was off. Her husband, Steve, who was home at the time, was informed of her death, and he apparently seemed upset at first, then would kind of fluctuate between being upset and crying and acting like nothing was wrong. This was apparently a failed marriage that was soon going to end in a divorce, and that night
She got
Kathy
poisoned or
told
something?
Steve that she was going out to meet her friend Charlotte. According to Steve, she left at around 11 p.m. and the police found her dead at 4 a.m. But she had actually met up with her boyfriend in a motel, and they did stuff. There were actually
Yeah, I mean, that's the motive right there. If the husband knew about it.
2 phone calls made by Steve that night, one to Kathy's friend Charlotte, and one to the motel. So it seems like Steve had made some calls that night, found out Kathy had lied to him about who she was seeing, and then when she came home, he demanded sex from her, as there was evidence that
That's
the
not
two
good.
had sex in the last 24 hours. She must have refused, and he eventually assaulted her and strangled her to death. Then he dressed her up, put her in the car, and staged the crash. This one seems fairly straightforward to me.
That's not really a mystery. It seems very straightforward. That's so stupid. That's just a stupid way to cover it up. Why would you set it up as a car crash unless you're actually damaging the damn car? Like, if the car's perfectly intact, what the fuck? How are you gonna stage it as a car crash? That's fucking dumb as shit.
All the evidence, it's insane to me that Steve hasn't been charged yet, but that technically
He's been
means that
charged?
this case
What?
remains unsolved.
That's ridiculous.
Kennica Jenkins. So this was the sad case of an 18-year-old girl who went missing in Chicago 2017. She had told her mum that she was going bowling with some friends, but they actually went to
Do I know
a
about
party
this?
on the 9th floor of the Crown Plaza Chicago Hotel. Her and her friends arrived at the party at around 1 a.m. and at 1:30 she sent a text to her sister. This would be the last time her family would hear from her again. Snapchat videos that they made at the time clearly showed that these girls were unhappy and uncomfortable, as several males at the party were flirting aggressively with them,
God.
even after the girls told them to back off. At around 3 a.m., the girls left the party and headed to the hotel lobby. Kennica had left all of her belongings in the room, so the girls left Kennica in the lobby and went to the room to get her stuff. When they came back down 20 minutes later, she was nowhere to be seen. They checked around for Kennica, even driving to her mum's house to see if she somehow made it home, but she wasn't there, so they drove back to the hotel with her mum to continue the search. The hotel staff originally refused to show the mum any of the security footage. Then, when a missing person
That's suspicious
case was
as hell.
started with the police involved, the staff assured the police that they had checked the footage and found no evidence of Kennica.
That's hella suspicious, bro. That someone on the higher ups of the staff had something to do with it, bro. Like they're covering it up, or they got paid off or something. Because what do you like? What motive do you have to not show the footage, bro? Like what? Like I don't see any motive other than suspicious, other than something suspicious for a hotel to not show damn security footage to people when someone went missing in their damn hotel.
So later that night, an officer decided to check the footage himself, and lo and behold, he found Kennica. Interesting. She was stumbling around the hallways of the hotel, and using the footage, they tracked her movements. She went into an elevator and down to the lower floor, then eventually walking upstairs and into a men's bathroom. She eventually finds her way to an unused kitchen that was under renovation, and finds her way to the back of the kitchen.
Oh, she went in
towards
the
a
fridge,
large
right?
Double freezer. So police
Yeah.
went
Okay, I do know about the story where They claim she went into the freezer and died, but there's like some suspicion around it of like, yeah, there's some suspicion around it about like she shouldn't have been able to even open it or something. I'm sure he'll say the details here. I don't remember it fully. I definitely heard about this story a couple years ago though.
To check the freezers, and there was Kenika, frozen solid and dead. This was a bit of a sad case, and it seems likely that she had a drink too many and simply lost her way through the hotel, eventually passing out in the freezer. The actions of the hotel with the security footage seem a little bit suspicious, and some people suspect the males at the party to have spiked her drink or something, but to this day no one has been charged and her death is still ruled an accident. Kirsty Bentley. This is one of the highest profile unsolved murders in New Zealand. Kirsty Bentley was a 15-year-old who went missing in 1998. She was walking her dog along a regular route and didn't return home. After a huge search that lasted several weeks, her body was found in a dense scrub roughly 40 kilometers away. Her dog tied to a tree and her underwear were found near where she was walking. So whatever happened must have happened here. She was killed by a sudden blow to the head and taken to where she was found. As I said, this was a huge profile case with tons of media coverage, but sadly to this day no killer has been found. No one has been charged, but this case still remains open. Kurt Cobain's Ren and Stimpy song. So, Kurt Cobain...
I do know about this. The thing that's interesting about this is there's really no evidence for it other than one guy saying it. Basically, I think one guy on the Ren and Stimpy team was on like a podcast or something, and he claimed that one day some guy came in with his pitch for a Ren and Stimpy song, and they just kind of shrugged him off and made him go away, and they later learned it was Kurt fucking Cobain, of Nirvana. But what I know is, so that it's like lost media, there's no one to be found, but I don't think we know if the story is really true or not, 'cause I think the only evidence for it is that one guy saying it, so...
of Nirvana allegedly wrote an early theme song for Ren and Stimpy in 1990, but executives apparently didn't like it and so they threw it out. This claim was from a podcast with one of the main characters of the show's voice actors, Billy West. No copies of this alleged song have ever been found, and there's very little evidence to prove it ever existed, so who knows. L.W. Wright.
It'd be really cool if we found it though.
In the sport of NASCAR, basically zoom zoom go fast, it is fiercely competitive and you need all of these sponsors, money, a competitive license, all of this stuff. But L.W. Wright was a man who entered and raced without any of that. In 1982, a man approached Bernie Terrell, who was the head of a marketing firm. This man claimed he was an experienced NASCAR driver and wanted some money to sponsor him in an upcoming race. Somehow this worked and Terrell offered him the money. This was for a car, truck, a team, weekly expenses, the whole shebang. He then bought a car from another racer, who he convinced well enough that this other man offered to join his team, so Wright accepted. Then he told the press that his car was sponsored by T.G. Shepherd and Merle Haggard, two huge country stars. This was complete bullshit, and after the stories were published, Wright was called out on this, but he just danced around the claim, saying that, okay, technically the claims were premature, and he was still in some talks about the sponsorship. T.G. Shepherd had never heard of this guy. Then came the problem of the license, which Wright didn't have. But Wright simply walked into the office responsible for issuing these licenses, and without any evidence of his racing history or ability, somehow managed to convince them to grant him a license. So that was
This guy's fucking Kilgrave, dude. Like, if you've seen the Jessica Jones, the Purple Man in Marvel Comics, where he just says something and then people do it, Like, Kilgrave is a Marvel villain. He'll just be like, go in that closet, and you just have no control over it. You just have to go in the closet, it seems what this guy has some powers or something, dude. I'm guessing he has some blackmail or something on some people higher up in NASCAR. He must have something, bro, or he maybe just secretly has like shitloads of money that he's just like paying people out. I don't know what the fuck happened here.
Everything he needed. He did the race, coming 36th out of 40th, then simply walked away from his car and was never seen again. It's likely that L.W. Wright wasn't even his real name, and he has often been called the D.B. Cooper of NASCAR, which, if you've seen my previous videos, you'll know that I am a big fan of the D.B. Cooper mystery. But I think he is closer to a Frank Abagnale sort of.
Love the Let Me Know video on D.B. Cooper. Classic.
character, who is actually my all-time favorite conman. So without further ado, grab a drink. My choice today is black coffee, and join me as we explore the unsolved mystery Iceberg. Starting off, we have La Mancha Negra, or the Black Stain. This is a mysterious black substance that has oozed out of roads in Venezuela since 1986. This ooze is
Is it not oil? Don't they have shit tons of oil there?
super slick and slippery, and has actually caused multiple car accidents and deaths over the years. There have been studies done and millions of dollars of research into it for almost 20 years, and they still haven't figured out what it is or where it came from. Lane Bryant shooting. This was an armed robbery which turned into a mass shooting in 2008 Chicago. 4 customers, 1 part-time worker, and 1 store manager were taken to the back of the store at gunpoint and all shot. Everyone except the part-time worker was killed, and the gunman was described as a black man with thick cornrowed hair and a receding hairline. There was no motive found for the killings except maybe a robbery gone wrong, and there was a $100,000 reward set for anyone with information on the shooter. Almost 24 leads were called in, but none really fully panned out, and so the shooter is still unidentified. Large Antarctic sea mammal. This was a large sea creature spotted by a Japanese research ship in Antarctica. The captain of the ship nicknamed the creature the Antarctic Godzilla. Some people suggest that this creature is of the same species as another sighting, the Cabagon, also spotted by someone from Japan. There's not much evidence for this one besides their word, but I'm telling you, the ocean is crazily deep and dark, and it wouldn't surprise
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they actually did see something that was like a large sea creature or something that we maybe haven't seen before. I doubt it was like Godzilla or something, but like, we've only explored like 30% of the ocean. I wouldn't be surprised if there's just hella sea animals out there that we don't have a full grasp on that are just, out there in the middle of the ocean.
me if there were many unknown creatures roaming around down there. Las Noches del Hombre Lobo, or the
Especially near like Antarctica and stuff where there's not gonna be much people anyway to see them.
Nights of the Wolfman. This was a 1968 Spanish horror film about a werewolf named Count Valdemar Daninsky. It starred Paul Naschy, but there were doubts as to whether the film was ever actually made. Naschy is the only person that claims that this movie was ever even filmed. He said he wrote the film and filmed his scenes in Paris, but he says the director, René Govard, was killed in a car accident a week after the film was sent off to a lab to be processed. And since no one paid the fees for these negatives to be processed, the lab held onto them and then just later discarded them. The director and the 2 other people starring in this film have never been proven to exist, and their names don't turn up on any records. So many people regard this movie claim as a hoax, or as Paul Naschy simply trying to big up his acting career early on by adding in this fake film to his resume. And he eventually just got caught up in the lie and couldn't stop. But till the day he died, Naschy insisted this film was real and did at one point exist. Le Lion. This was a humanoid figure also known as the Ghost of Moles, who is said to haunt the woodlands in a small town in Switzerland. It is described as a tall humanoid creature dressed in a gimp suit and wearing a full gas mask. This figure was rarely seen, but a photograph captured of it was posted in the Le Matin newspaper. And a while after this,
Bro,
but a
come on now.
photograph
Brother, what is this photograph, dog? Every time people be like, bro, I got a photograph of this unseen creature, bro. It's some shit like this, bro. What is this, bro? That could be a smudge on the damn paper, bro. What the fuck is this picture?
of it was posted in
This shit, you could tell me this is a painting and I would like not even think twice about it, you know what I mean? This shit looks like a painting.
the Le Matin newspaper. And a while after this, the beast allegedly committed suicide. Its clothes were found in the woodlands with a cryptic note reading La risque d'une chasse à la bête, which translates to the risk of a hunt for the beast. The note accused Le Matin of murdering a harmless beast by revealing its existence. The phantom disappears. The risk of a beast hunt is too great. It will come back to haunt the narrow minds of your kind. For ultimately, a ghost never dies. Pretty creepy and interesting, but it's a great one to check out, and I will leave the fully translated note in a comment below. The lead mask case. This was a series of events that led to the death of 2 Brazilian technicians in 1966 Brazil. The The 2 bodies were found by a boy flying a kite in Rio de Janeiro. The bodies rested next to each other, partly covered in grass, and each wore a full formal suit, an eye mask made of lead, and a waterproof coat. There were no signs of any injuries or a struggle, and next to the bodies the police found an empty water bottle and a packet containing 2 wet towels. Also found was a notebook that contained notes in Portuguese. 1630, be at the specified location. 1830, ingest capsules. After the effect, protect metals, await signal mask. Police traced the men's
With these guys like part of a cult or something? Yeah, I
last
don't.
few days as they
Like it seems like a suicide cult kind of thing, or they just like willingly injected these capsules and just kind of laid there knowing they were gonna die.
left their town, got on a bus to Rio de Janeiro, bought the waterproof coats and then a bottle of water from a local bar. Then they just apparently went straight to the area that they were found in and eventually died. Because of how badly decomposed the organs were, a test for toxic substances was never done. It's unclear why they were dressed the way that they were, or who or where the notes and instructions came from. What capsule were they ingesting and why, and how did they die? Theories range from them being spies to it being some sort of Brazilian government experiment, to a cult ritual involving psychedelics, to some sort of alien interference. But it's a very mysterious one all round. Lewis Hamilton's 2007 title choke. So Lewis Hamilton at the time was a rookie Formula 1 racer who was actually doing incredibly well and was in line to win his first Formula 1 championship in 2007. With only 2 races left, he was at a 12-point lead, and if he could perform even decently well, he would win the championship. But these last 2 races were a complete disaster, with multiple personal and team mistakes occurring, eventually putting him just 1 point behind the winners and losing him the championship. 5 years later, he was asked what exactly happened at that championship, and he said, "I didn't know at the time, but I do now, and it's not something that I can talk about." That year, Hamilton's
That's a
team
suspicious thing to
fined a
say.
massive $100 million. This was for industrial espionage, where they had over 680 pages of information on the car of their rival Ferrari. It was decided at the time that the racers of the team, Hamilton and Alonso, were allowed to keep their points so that the upcoming races would still be competitive. There were quite a few political issues and motives in the team at the time, which may have led to them either sabotaging or putting pressure on Hamilton to throw the race, as the powers behind Formula 1 might have said to the team leaders, "Okay, we'll let your drivers keep the points so that the viewers are still invested in the race, but we can't allow you to win." And maybe the team managers were in agreement, as maybe they offered them some sort of a deal and it looked better than being disqualified, maybe, so they threw the race. But it's never been confirmed, and so the true reason for this
A lot of stuff like this happens in sports, especially boxing. Boxing is really bad. Really bad stuff like this happens all the time in boxing, but also NBA. There's the current, it might be done at this point, but I think it's still continuing, the lawsuit happening. Well, not even a lawsuit, a criminal lawsuit, towards several NBA players, betting on the under on themselves. Of course, that's different from this, where it was like the actual league officiating kind of telling them to throw the game. But, yeah, that's the thing in the NBA right now, like Malik Beasley, fucking betting the under on himself and then just doing like shit, you know what I mean?
absolute choke and disaster is still a mystery. Lisa Marie Young. This was a 21-year-old
Lisa Marie
woman
Presley.
who disappeared in 2002, British Columbia, Canada. She had been out partying before accepting a ride to get some food from a man she had just met, and she was never seen again. Lisa and her friend, Dallas, were at a nightclub when they were approached by a man who invited them to a house party. They accepted, and he drove them there in his red Jaguar. Then they went to a second house party, and after that, Lisa said
Never trust a man you don't know, bro. Never, just stop trusting men. Okay.
she was hungry, and this man offered to take her to get some food. At around 4 a.m., Dallas got a call from Lisa saying, "Dallas, I don't know what's going on. This guy won't bring me back. We're sitting in a driveway on Bowen Road and he won't bring me back. I'm bored and I'm getting pissed off." Lisa was never seen or heard from again, and her phone soon stopped pinging its signal. There was a large search done, but Lisa, this mysterious man, and his red Jaguar were never found. Lord Lucan. This was a British man who disappeared disappeared after being accused of murder in 1974. He was a rich, splashy guy who is actually considered for the role of James Bond in some of the cinematic adaptations because of how much like James Bond he actually was. Although if he was really like James Bond, he would have got away with this. But what do I know? I'm not a spy, I'm just a guy with a microphone. After a failed marriage and vicious custody battle, the nanny of Lucan's children was bludgeoned to death on November 7th, 1974, in the kitchen of their family home. The wife was also attacked when she went to investigate, and she identified the attacker as Lord Lucan. The killer fled and was last seen in his car, which was later found abandoned with a bloody pipe and bandages. So with this much evidence against him, he was named as the killer, but was never seen after this to serve his time. There are no clues as to where he went or how he avoided being caught for this amount of time, but he was legally declared dead in 1999. Man in the Iron Mask. This was an unidentified prisoner during the reign of King Louis XIV of France in the 1600s. He was serving a life sentence but only served 34 years before dying in prison. He was forced to wear a full iron mask at all times. So questions as to who he really was have naturally circulated over the years. There were many theories of claims that range from him being an Italian diplomat that had upset King Louis, so he had them imprisoned, to it being King Louis's older twin brother, who Louis had stolen the rightful throne from and imprisoned with a mask so no one could see that they were related, or to it just being someone with a hideous facial deformity, so they used it to hide their face. As I said, his identity has never been confirmed, so it makes for some great speculation. Max Headroom broadcast signal intrusion.
This is an absolute classic, bro. The Max Headroom case. It's been parodied multiple times, also in like the Rap God music video by Eminem. Well, that's Max Headroom in general, but the Max Headroom, signal intrusion. I mean, it's just crazy. Like, imagine, like, interrupting a whole broadcast of like something that was so. I think it was like in the middle of Doctor Who. They interrupted the case, and then we're just doing some weird shit in a Max Headroom mask. Yeah.
In 1987, when the television signals of two stations in Illinois were...
Imagine you're watching Doctor Who and you're like, what the fuck is this? Like, well, yeah, this is an iconic image, bro. And yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say this guy's never gonna get caught. Now it's been like over like what, nearly 40 years probably at this point.
Broadcast was of someone in a Max Headroom mask and sunglasses with
Imagine taking this shit to the grave, dude.
Backdrop and distorted audio. They act a bit erratic for a while, with one of the interruptions lasting only 17 seconds and the other 2 hours later lasting a minute and a half. To this day, no one knows who this person was and no one has ever come forward for it, so it remains a mystery. Miss X. This is an unidentified woman who was found in Delaware in 1967. She was originally thought to have died in an illegal at the time failed abortion, but evidence that came out later leaned law enforcement towards foul play, and so her death is officially listed as a homicide. Her body was found on the side of a road wearing only a pair of blue bikini bottoms, and she officially died of sepsis or blood poisoning, but the circumstances surrounding her death and dumping are unclear, hence the homicide status. She was eventually marked as identified by an unofficial missing persons website, claiming that her identity was Patrona Patmios of Greek origin. But since law enforcement hasn't officially confirmed this, she officially remains unidentified. Moa Moa. This is Lapras. Tell me it's not Lapras. The Moa Moa is a giant turtle-like sea creature that reportedly lives in the Great Barrier Reef near Australia. It is 8 feet wide and 5 feet tall and was first spotted by a schoolteacher, Miss S. Lovell, in Queensland 1890. Since then, there have been 9 different sightings, and the sightings were attributed to the Moa Moa, a beast that the Australian natives had known and encountered for hundreds of years. This beast would attack their villagers and kill members of their tribe, and there were actually reports of similar creatures going back as far as the 1700s with British explorer James Cook. Mokele Mbembe. This is Lingala, a language spoken in the Congo for one who stops the flow of rivers. This name is assigned to a water-dwelling creature that supposedly lives in the Congo River basin. The locals are undecided on whether this creature is a living creature, a spirit, or something else entirely. It is often described as a large quadrupedal herbivore with smooth skin, a long neck, and a single tooth or horn. Apparently, there was actually a big push by creationists to find this beast, as they believed that finding it would disprove the theory of evolution, but they could never quite
How?
find or capture the legendary Mokele Mbembe. Morgan Nick. This was a 6-year-old girl who
How would finding just an animal... What? That doesn't make any sense. What? Why would that disprove evolution?
was kidnapped from a Little League ball game in 1995 Arkansas. She had gone to the game with her mother and had gone off to catch lightning bugs with some of her friends. She was last seen around the back of her mum's car, emptying sand from her shoes. Nearby witnesses did see a man
Shit's really
watching
sad,
her
bro.
as she played with her friends, and there was a red pickup truck parked nearby that disappeared around the same time that Morgan did. So that was what they had to go off. The man was described as white, 6 feet tall, with a mustache, which could he be any more obvious? There were searches done, a $60,000 reward.
Meaning you shave the
set.
mustache
The
once they identify
FBI got
you.
involved, but to this day, sadly, Morgan hasn't been found. Though her parents still adamantly believe that she's still alive somewhere out there and will eventually return home. Mount Asahidake SOS incident. In
Wishful ass thinking, not gonna lie to you. I mean, let's be real now. If you don't find, if someone's missing, if you don't find them after like a month or two, chances are not looking great. I'm not gonna lie to you. Chances are not looking great.
1989, on the island of Hokkaido, Japan, a police
That's partly why they stopped doing the missing kids on the milk cartons, because you would see a missing kid on the milk carton, and then people would ask, "Oh, whatever happened to that kid?" And they just have to always be saying, "Oh, they got found in the woods." Yeah.
believe that she's still alive somewhere out there and will eventually return home. Mount Asahidake SOS incident. In 1989, on the island of Hokkaido, Japan, a police helicopter was out searching a mountain trail for 2 missing hikers. After hours of searching, the police eventually spotted a SOS sign made from birch logs on the side of this trail. The helicopter landed, found the 2 hikers, rescued them. Then in the helicopter, the hikers were given food and water. One of the officers said to them how clever it was to make a SOS sign, as the helicopter probably wouldn't have spotted them without it. The 2 hikers
Big
looked
brain.
at each other completely confused and said they had no idea what the officers were talking about. So the helicopter quickly flew back over to the SOS sign, and the 2 hikers said they didn't even notice it when they were on the ground, and they certainly didn't build it. So who did? And was there someone else on the trail that desperately needed help? As it was the end of the day and the light was fading,
That's tough, bro. You build the whole SOS sign, and they saved 2 guys who didn't even build the SOS sign. You think someone else got stuck on the island before, maybe at some point, and then they just never got found when they built the SOS sign? That's tough, man.
the helicopter returned to base, but set out the next morning over the trail. They went to the site of the SOS, and what they found was heartbreaking. Human bones scattered
Oh.
and with teeth marks in, suggesting that animals had disturbed them over the years. The bones were completely void of skin or muscle, suggesting that this happened a while ago, and one of the leg bones were broken, as were some bones in the upper body. A few hundred meters from the site, the search team discovered a backpack with a whole list of personal belongings in it. There was toothpaste, soap, a towel, but most strikingly, there was a tape recorder with 4 tapes containing some theme songs from popular anime shows at the time. They played some of the tapes and found that one of them was actually recorded over. The entire recording lasts 2 minutes 17 seconds, but it's hard to find any full recordings of the tape. But I'll include a link to a short one I found in the description. Be warned, it is a bit heartbreaking to listen to, but the full translated message is: I'm on a cliff and can't move. SOS, help me. I'm on a cliff and can't move. SOS, help me. I'm at the spot where I first saw the helicopter. The bamboo grass is too deep and I can't go anywhere. Please lift me up from here. They later found more items hidden in a hole in a nearby tree. 2 cameras, a notebook, and a driving license belonging to Kenji Iwamura of Konan City. This was a hiker who had gone missing 5 years ago. What likely happened is Kenji got stuck on a cliff and couldn't get down. This is when he made the recording. Then later, when no help came, he tried to climb down, fell, and broke one of his legs. What's insane though is how he managed, with 1 broken leg and several broken broken bones to cut down this many tree logs to create this SOS signal. And there was no
It still
axe
didn't get
or
found,
knife
bro. That's fucking
found on
tragic.
Kenji or anywhere nearby. And the sheer amount of pain he must have been in while doing all this is unfathomable. His efforts in building the signal actually ended up saving 2 hikers 5 years later, who would probably be dead without him. So even though Kenji...
Damn, so I was right on that second one. I mean, it's good that, his last ditch effort at least saved someone, even if it wasn't, himself.
He didn't make it. His last actions ended up being heroic and did more good than he maybe would have thought. Music on the moon. This was a mysterious music that was heard by the Apollo 10 astronauts on the dark side of the moon in 1969. NASA technicians...
It was clearly Pink Floyd's album. That's what they were hearing. They're on the dark side of the moon.
Technicians apparently warned one of the astronauts about this whistling music, and all records of this were classified.
They went on the other side. They went to the other side of the moon. They started,
till 2008. When they were released, the official explanation was that this was interference between 2 NASA radios. But space, especially deep space, is somewhat unknown to us. It might have been a cover-up, and they might have discovered some other form of life when they visited the moon. The New
I doubt
Bedford
it.
Highway Killer. This was a serial killer in 1988 and 9 who was responsible for the deaths of at least 9 women and the disappearance of 2 more. All of the victims were either sex workers or had struggles with addiction, and all were taken from New Bedford and found in different nearby towns. One main suspect was Anthony Di Grazia. He was never positively identified by any of the surviving victims, but one of the victims said that he had a similar build to the man who attacked her. He was brought in for questioning but not indicted. Then he was formally charged for separate attacks and rapes on various sex workers. He was put in jail on $1 million surety bond. He had 18 court cases over the next 13 months, all while being in jail, and this just went back and forth with filing different motions, the motions being rejected, hiring and firing different attorneys, until eventually his bail was lowered and he was released.
I hate the legal system, I'm not gonna lie to you. I think it takes so goddamn long. It takes way too long. In the Constitution, you're meant to have a speedy trial, and yet trials in the U.S. are not speedy whatsoever, dude. Like, it takes so long, it takes so much money to just get through legal processes. Like Luigi Mangione, right? Yeah, the alleged murderer of Brian Thompson, the United Healthcare CEO, in December of 2024. He's in jail. He's been in jail for over 1.5 years without a trial. He has not gone to trial, and he's been in jail for 1.5 years. It's like, bro, YNW Melly, the rapper, he's been in jail for like 8 years or something ridiculous, despite not having been found guilty. He's not had a full trial yet, and he's been in jail for like 8 years, bro. He's been in jail pretty much his entire 20s, despite not being found guilty. Not saying if he is guilty or not, or Luigi, but like, bro, like, it's insane that that's even a thing that can happen. I think it's fucking ridiculous.
On July 27th.
And then you have people who actually and you have people who, like, commit heinous crimes, and they get out with, like, it takes like 10 years to convict them, and then they're in jail for like you'll get pedophiles that are in jail for 13 months or something ridiculous, you know what I mean? It's fucking ridiculous.
1990. He was then immediately rearrested for threatening a district attorney. Di Grazia again posted bail and was released, but was found dead only a month later. The police and autopsy ruled it a homicide, but the district's attorney suspiciously later ruled it a suicide. There were a few other suspects, but this case just seems to be quite messy all round, with maybe a potential cover-up and framing, but to this day no one has been officially charged for these murders, so it remains unsolved. Ningen. This is a creature in Japanese folklore. The Ningen is an aquatic humanoid whale-like
Funny ass looking creature, dude.
Apparently inhabits the sub-Antarctic oceans. Some people believe it to be a myth made up by users on a Japanese forum, but there have been various sightings of it since 2002. Odd Radio Circle. This one is a cool space mystery. An odd radio circle, or ORC, is a huge astronomical object that is circular and bright at its edges. For some idea idea of how big this thing is? They are over 50,000 times the diameter of our Milky Way galaxy. Again, for more comparisons, the Milky Way galaxy is roughly 3 trillion times the size of our Earth, and these radio circles are 50,000 times bigger than that. These are only visible at radio wavelengths, not regular infrared or X-ray wavelengths, and 3 of these ORCs contain galaxies in their center, suggesting that whatever is in these galaxies might have formed these ORCs. I just love space.
That could be some alien shit. You never. That's something I would definitely believe the alien shit. Could maybe be an explanation for that. If there really is no explanation, I mean, because that's insane. 50,000 times the size of the Milky Way, and it's coming from a galaxy. I could maybe believe maybe there's some intelligent life, maybe causing a big fucking radio signal, like way bigger than we can ever dream to imagine.
Stuff. They are thought to have originated around 1 billion years ago, so ancient space civilizations. What more proof do you need? The Ohio City serial pooper. There are a few pooping related mysteries on this list, and I will be covering none of them. In fact, I'm not even going to be covering this one, as no one, myself included, wants to take a deep dive into these kinds of mysteries. They're basically all the same, and they're not exciting or entertaining in any way. Basically, some city or town finds that someone has been defecating where they shouldn't have been, and that's the entire mystery. Old Craigslist satanic ritual post. So this one was a little hard to find evidence for. It was apparently a Craigslist post that was titled "Donate Blood to Satanic Ritual." The group that posted it had already taken 5 lives and the blood of 10 others. Before another victim was claimed, police showed up mid-ritual and found 4 men standing over a pentagram covered in blood. As I said, this was a little hard to find actual evidence of, but it's likely based on some very easy to find evidence of killings, like Alight and Miranda Barber, a newly married couple who lured a man to their home on Craigslist and stabbed him 20 times to death. They were both charged with the man's murder, so horrific stuff like this does occur.
Craigslist is a bit shady. I don't know if I'd be going to anyone's house off a Craigslist. Off a Craigslist listing, that'd be a bit, I would definitely, take some salt in that.
The origins of golf. So for such a popular game, no one really knows who invented golf or where. It is widely thought that the Scots invented golf, which was almost exclusively a Scottish sport up until the 19th century when it spread to the rest of the United Kingdom and then to the world. But the earliest documented mention of golf in Scotland was in the 1457 Act of Scottish Parliament. This prohibited the playing of the games of golf and football, as they were apparently distractions from the archery practice.
That's hilarious.
Of the military. Even 600 years ago, people got distracted playing games.
Damn, golf is old as hell then.
But there is evidence of a golf-like game being played in the Netherlands as far back as 1297. And in fact...
My light keeps falling down, sorry. Yeah, a lot of the American sports are way newer compared to other sports than we realize, because like football as in soccer, and like golf and stuff are like so much older. Like basketball was invented in 1896 by James Naismith. Like basketball is like so recent, and like baseball was invented, I think, around the 1800s. And well, it was just invented earlier than the 1800s because the MLB like started in the 1800s. But I would say like mid to early 1800s is when baseball was invented, and that's considered a really old American sport. But that's like not even close to, you know, I mean, they're mentioning golf in 1457, and that's like not even when it was invented. Like that's that's just them banning it because people were playing too much golf by 1457.
The name golf is widely thought to be derived from the Dutch word kolf or kolf, meaning stick or club. So it seems like it maybe started in the Netherlands, then somehow made its way up to Scotland and was quite popular up there, but maybe it didn't even originate in the Netherlands. It's hard to say exactly where it came from, but at the end of the day, it's just hitting a small ball with a crooked stick. So honestly,
I mean, multiple players could have invented that at the same time. It's not like the most hard to think of idea of hit ball going hole, you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't be surprised if like soccer was like the same way where multiple people invented it at the same time, because it's just like, let's kick a ball around and you try to get to that side, I try to get to this side, you know?
it could have been anywhere. The oven homicide. This was the unusual homicide of a woman called Hilka in Finland, 1960. She was married to Pentti Saarinen, who apparently was violent and threatening towards Hilka when he had had a few drinks. One time he even threatened to kill her in a way that couldn't be traced. So on December the 25th,
Well, that's not suspicious at all.
the couple's eldest son arrived home for Christmas.
For some reason, my husband threatened me to kill me. Her husband threatened her to kill her in a way that couldn't be traced, and then she dies in a way we can't trace. I wonder who it could be.
One day earlier than expected. The front door was unlocked and Pentti came out of the kitchen and locked the door behind him. He blocked his son's path into the kitchen, trying not to be suspicious, and gave excuses as to why his mother wasn't there. He said she had just gone out and didn't tell him, and he didn't know where she was. During his son's stay, Pentti would watch him very closely whenever he was anywhere near the kitchen, and would act extremely nervous and paranoid. That night, his son went downstairs to get extra sheets, and he noticed his dad in the kitchen in the pitch black cleaning something up. Years passed, and with every visit that his son made to the house, he suspected more and more that his father had killed his mother. He would check different parts of the house, like the floorboards and the attic, but over the years he didn't find anything. Then he remembered that first night in 1960 when he arrived home, how his father would act extremely suspicious around the kitchen and the large family oven, and it struck him that's where she must be. So he wrote a letter to the police that read, "I suspect that my father knows more about the disappearance of my mother than he has told me. He has clearly opened the oven and shut it again. However, the oven has not been used in 7 to 8 years before this. My father was cleaning in the dark, even though another room was lit when I arrived. I think the oven should be dismantled. My father could do anything." The letter wasn't noted, and so a year later he wrote an article in the Alama magazine titled, "Where do they disappear? / I suspect my father is a murderer." His father met with him sometime after this and said, "Let's just both mind our own business." Yeah, that's not suspicious.
It's not suspicious. Yeah, if my own son accused me of murder, and I would, that's clearly what I would say. I would just, clearly something. If you murder someone, sorry, I can't fucking speak. If someone says you killed someone when you didn't kill someone, that's clearly what you say, right? Oh, you just mind your own business. Yeah, you definitely. Not suspicious fucking at all.
This, and 12 years after the mother's disappearance, police eventually came to the house, moved Pentti to a police station, and began dismantling the oven. They found it filled with sand, and in the sand was the mummified head of a woman, a foot, and eventually an entire body. This was Hilka. In court, they found that Pentti had borrowed 75 crime novels from the local library, but
here's what I don't understand, right? This woman goes missing. Do they not search her house? And if you're searching her house, do you not question, buddy, why's your oven filled with sand? Is that not like something you would question? Buddy, why is your oven completely filled with sand? And so, did they just not search the house or whatever? Like, it seems like something you should do if someone goes missing, to search their house. You know what I mean? Like,
between April and December 1960, which that's a lot of books to read, and many of them were about murder, including murdering one's wife. But I'm sure that was just a coincidence. Pentti pleaded
big coincidence,
guilty, and the court decided that he hadn't caused Hilka's death on purpose, and sentenced him to only 8 years. Which I don't know how you can determine that, but
what was I just saying about the legal systems, bro? Like, what was I just fucking saying? God damn it.
Okay. However, Pentti only served one of those 8 years, as he was released after the Supreme Court of Finland said that neither the cause or the
dude, and by the way, it's obviously not just a U.S. problem. This isn't fucking Finland, but come on, bro. 1 year, bro. 1 year. 8 years would have been ridiculous. 1 year. I mean, bro. In the U.S., you got people fucking serving 15 years for drug-related charges, bro. Like,
determine that, but okay. However, Pentti only served one of those 8 years, as he was released after the Supreme Court of Finland said that neither the cause or the
wasn't the guy who leaked GTA 6 like sentenced to like 100,000 years or something ridiculous?
manner of Hilka's death was known, and that one could no longer be sentenced for an accidental killing after 12 years, which is just insane. So Penty returned to the house and he lived there until his death in 1986. This case is just
What the
bonkers, and
fuck,
it's
dude?
fairly obvious to me that he was guilty. And to serve only 1 year of an already way too short sentence just seems like Hilke wasn't given the full justice that she deserved. If you are liking the video so far, guys, do hit the like button. And if you don't want to miss the
This proves to me, by the way, that karma isn't real. People who believe in karma, like, no. I mean, this guy is fucking horrible. He got off perfectly fine, bro. Like,
future videos, you can always subscribe if you want. But let's get back to the video. Pamela Buckley and James Freund. These were the deaths of 2 previously unidentified victims in South Carolina, 1976. They were originally referred to as Jock and Jane Doe, but in 2021, they were identified as James
very
Freund
recent.
and Pamela Buckley. This was almost 45 years after they had been found. They were found on a secluded dirt road, being shot a total of 5 times in the chest and neck with a .357 revolver. It was thought that maybe they had stopped to pick up a hitchhiker, who then pulled a gun on them, forced them to get out of the car, and then shot them both before driving off. The only suspects for the murders have since died, and so to this day, this sad case remains unsolved. The paradox of tolerance. So this is an interesting...
If this is the thing I'm thinking about, this is something that I very much agree with, which is that the paradox of tolerance is that if we're tolerant to the point that we're tolerant towards intolerant people, then intolerance will rule. Which and it sounds complicated when I say it like that, but basically it's saying if you're accepting of everyone, then you have to be accepting of people who are not accepting of others. So like if you're accepting of everyone, you're accepting of racists and stuff. But then if you're accepting of racists, that allows racists to not be accepting of, like, people they deem not, the superior race or whatever. So it creates issues. So basically it's kind of a political statement of saying that you should not be accepting. It's like when people say, "Oh, it's just my opinion, bro." Just be accepting of people's opinions, okay? You just be accepting of people's political opinions. No, because if I respect everyone's beliefs, I'm not respecting your belief if I believe you're racist. You know what I mean? Because that prohibits other people from accepting. If you don't because that prohibits other people from expressing their beliefs and living their life, So you should not respect people's beliefs if those beliefs are hurtful, towards other people, racist, misogynist, homophobic, transphobic, stuff like that. I think that's what this is saying. If that's not what this is saying, then let IS explain a whole other topic to you, so.
Philosophical one. The paradox of tolerance basically says that an individual or society can't be completely tolerant or peaceful, because then its ability to be tolerant will eventually be destroyed by the intolerant. It's one reason why being completely passive and peaceful just doesn't work, because if everyone was like that, it would be lovely. But if everyone is like that, then the first person who comes along who's not passive and peaceful will just completely take over, and they will win, because the peaceful people, like the dodos who didn't run away or fight back, will be like sitting ducks. There's a lot of bird analogies in this one. If you're faced with someone who is intolerant, your only options are to maintain your tolerance, in which case you just lose, or to become intolerant of their intolerance, in which case you might win, but then you've introduced intolerance into the system.
And that's
fine. It's sad that we can't have absolute peace and tolerance, but by its very nature, it seems like peace just tends to attract the unpeaceful like a vacuum. And so one way or the other, there will be aggression and intolerance. It's just a question of whether it's on the side of good or the side of evil. The Potomsky Crater. This is a large rock formation that was discovered in 1949 Russia. It was originally thought to be a crater from a meteor.
That's where, going back to the paradox of intolerance, it's like when, a racist guy, someone will say something racist and then people will go after them and say, something bad about them, and they'll be like, "Wow, so much for the, so much for the tolerant left." You know what I mean? Wow, a guy can't have an opinion nowadays, bro. You're saying this, well, you're saying what I'm saying is bad, but you're saying bad stuff to me. Yeah, of course I'm saying bad stuff to you because you're saying bad stuff. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's not the same because you're putting down, races of people, stereotyping people, or an entire sex or an entire group of people, you know what I mean, sexuality, versus me going after you, being intolerant towards those people, who can't control that their identity. And but you can very much control if you're an asshole or not. So of course I'm gonna be intolerant to you, jackass. Like the fuck you talking about?
Discovered in 1949, Russia. It was originally thought to be a crater from a meteorite, but since then that theory has been questioned a little bit. Other theories have popped up involving deep pockets of gas and volcanic activities, but none have actually been agreed upon as the cause for this crater. So this one remains a mystery. Phone calls made from beyond the grave. So this one is just a general mystery of phone calls or messages left from people who had already died. For some people, this provides proof of an afterlife, whether it's through ghosts or a spiritual realm or something like heaven and hell. But a lot of people swear that it happens and they are able to hear their loved ones say goodbye.
Something I don't understand a lot of the time is there's a lot of Christian people that you'll meet that'll also believe in ghosts, and I don't really understand that. Like, I feel like those people just are not thinking fully about what their beliefs are, because like, do those two not like go against each other? Like the belief in Christianity and like the belief in ghosts, aren't those like two different forms of afterlife? How do you believe in both? Like, what do you think happens when you die? Like, you're a ghost for a bit, and then you go to heaven or hell, or like you can come out of heaven or hell for a little bit just to fuck around with people, haunt them for a bit. Like, it really confuses me.
By one last time. Playboy Channel religious message. This one was like an Uno reverse card, where Thomas Haney of the Christian Broadcasting Network hijacked the broadcast of the Playboy Channel during the airing of
That's
the
hilarious.
film Three Daughters, which I'll let you figure out what type of film.
I can imagine.
He broadcast religious messages and preaching, such as this one, and police eventually traced the hacking back to the Christian Broadcasting Network, and finally to Thomas Haney. He was eventually charged and sentenced to a $1,000 fine, 150 hours community service, and 3 years probation for satellite piracy. If you're watching the Playboy channel and quotes from the Bible come up, you have got to think that that's a sign from God. So, without further ado, grab a drink.
I bet there was some like Christian dudes watching that and like getting off, and then that interrupts, and if they seen it as like a divine intervention, like, damn, I gotta change my ways.
Choice today is just plain water, and join me as we explore the unsolved mystery Iceberg. The Poison Pen murders was actually just one suspected murder and one attempted murder. This was in 1976 Ohio, and it all started with an ominous letter. This letter was
Only
sent
in
to
Ohio.
Mary Gillespie, who was a school bus driver. The letter said that the writer was aware of an affair that she was having. This letter had no return address inside and no signature, and the letters were all capitalized, with the handwriting looking fairly generic. So at the time, there was very little they could do to figure out who wrote it. Then, a week later, she received a similar letter in the same vein. She kept these to herself until soon after her husband, Ron, received one. And this one said that if he didn't stop the affair, his life was in danger. The next letter Ron received said, "Gillespie, you have had 2 weeks and you have done nothing. Make her admit the truth and inform the school board. If not, I will broadcast it on CBS, posters, signs, and billboards until the truth comes out." Mary and Ron apparently had some idea of who was sending the letters, and they had a plan. Paul Fresher, Mary's brother-in-law, said that they planned to scare the guy who was sending these letters by sending some letters of their own. In the letters, apparently they said, "We know who you are and we know what you're doing," sort of thing, and that he had better stop. And so the letters stopped for a year. Then
Pussy
Ron
ass.
Gillespie, Mary's husband, received a phone call. After this phone call, he told his kids he loved them and said he was going out to confront the letter writer. He took his gun with him and he left the house. He got into his truck, and just a short distance from his house, he lost control of his vehicle, crashed into a tree, and was killed. Strangely, his gun was missing one bullet, which means between him leaving the house and crashing into the tree, he somehow, for some reason, fired a shot at someone or something. The reason for this shot was never determined, and they eventually marked his death as an accident. Around this time, local residents started receiving anonymous letters saying stuff like the sheriff was involved in a cover-up. And it was a while after this that Mary actually admitted to having an affair, but she said that it only started after the letters were being sent. Yep, absolutely. Then all went quiet for 5 years until several signs were put up along Mary's bus route. She ignored them at first, but after a while decided to stop ignoring them and went to tear one of them down. She found that the sign was attached by.
Okay, I gotta say something. We're just gonna pause here for a second, okay? You see this thing up to the very top in this, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but you see this thing up here in the black, like you have the three hearts and you have this like black diamond with this thing in the middle. He's got to get rid of this thing, bro. It looks way too much like a swastika, dude. I'm sorry. It looks way too similar to a swastika, bro. Like literally, does this not look like a swastika? Am I tripping? Am I brain dead? Like, does this not look like straight up a swastika? I don't know.
A string to a box behind the post, and in this box was a small pistol. Someone had booby-trapped this sign so that when whoever went to tear it down, likely Mary, the sign would trigger the pistol and fire at whoever was in front of it. Luckily, this booby trap actually failed to fire, and after tracing the serial number on the gun, they determined that the gun belonged to Mary's brother-in-law, Paul Fresher. Dun dun dun. The serial number on the gun had also been attempted to be scratched off, but they were able to bring it to a lab and actually read the scratched off serial number. He apparently didn't like Mary too much, and he knew about the affair, but he said he didn't have anything to do with it. Even though he had a fairly solid alibi for the day that the booby trap was found, Paul was tried and convicted of the attempted murder of Mary, and was sentenced to the maximum sentence of 7 to 25 years. And then the letters just stopped for a month, and then more letters were sent than ever before. They were all anonymous, just like before, and Paul was even put into solitary confinement several times, but the letters never stopped. After a few years, the letters eventually did stop, and after serving 10 years, Paul was released. He maintains to this day that he was innocent, and I guess the question comes up of who was writing these letters, even while Paul was in solitary confinement. Also, who placed the booby trap, and was Ron's death really an accident or something more sinister? Nobody really knows.
This is a whole lot about that
Popeye
one.
and Betty Boop sex tape is
What?
a reference to an apparent sex tape short made in 1938 involving Popeye and Betty Boop. This was apparently shown once and then never again.
They are
It
both
was
pretty
made
hot.
as a thank you to the animators who had moved from New York to their new offices in Miami. It apparently involved Popeye visiting Betty Boop in Miami, where Betty gives him a very warm welcome. Apparently they're going at it, and then in classic Popeye fashion, he has to down a can of spinach to finish the job. There's no surviving
I'm not gonna lie, that's hilarious. That's hilarious, bro. It's like spinach like working his fucking Viagra for Popeye. That's fucking hilarious.
evidence of this tape, but many people, including people who worked at the studios, swore that they saw it. Primordial black holes. So these are hypothetical black holes that formed soon after the Big Bang. This one gets really, really complicated, but they have been theorized to be the cause of some early.
Once again, I've said it before. All of these cosmological mysteries are going to be super complex because, I mean, things that we've solved in astrophysics or whatever, astronomy, sorry, are really complex. So the things that these really smart guys can't figure out, it's gonna be fucking ridiculously complex.
Galaxy formations, and could be the potential culprit behind dark matter, that lovely mysterious thing responsible for 85% of the matter in the universe. This was covered in episode 2, so check it out. As I said, these topics are relatively unexplained and incredibly complex. But if you want to take a little dive into this one, it is super interesting and I definitely wouldn't stop you. The princes in the tower were the two princes and sons of King Edward IV of England in 1483. They were King Edward V and his younger brother Richard of Shrewsbury. Some of these titles are just amazing. They were aged 12 and 9 respectively, and when their father, Edward IV, died unexpectedly, Edward V was set to be king. In preparation for his coronation, their uncle Richard lodged them.
Yeah, I do know about this. I was making sure I was thinking of the right thing. Yeah, Richard III, he definitely killed them. Like, I don't have really any doubt about it. He definitely killed those motherfuckers, and I think they were, was it them? It was I think it was both of them they were found dead in like a parking lot. Like their bodies were never found at this time. and then they got found like in the 20th, like in modern day, like when they were building a parking lot. I think it was that, or was it him, or was it Richard III himself that got found? It was one of them. It's one of them. They got found when they were building a fucking parking lot, and they found a skeleton. They're like, "Who the hell?" And they're like, "Oh shit!" And then they checked it, and like, "Oh shit, this is fucking like the king, the former
in
king."
the Tower of London. But before the young king could be crowned, both he and his brother were declared illegitimate, and soon after, their uncle became King Richard III. There is no record of what happened to the boys after this, but it is thought that they were likely killed in some way by their uncle, and there were several people who claimed to be one of the two princes. This was years after their disappearance, but these claims were largely dismissed as fakes. In 1674, while working on the Tower of London, workmen found a wooden box underneath a staircase that contained two small human skeletons. These are widely accepted to be the bones of the two princes, but this is not proven, so to this day, the fate of the two princes in the tower...
Yeah, I think it was Richard III himself that was found in the fucking parking lot or whatever. Not the boys, which that's really sad.
remains a mystery. Pseudo-Neros. So this one is kind of odd. In 68 AD, the Emperor Nero of Rome committed suicide. Then, for the next dozen or so years, several imposters popped up. There were apparently also imperial edicts that were written in the dead Nero's name that encouraged his followers to stay strong and promised his imminent return to take revenge on his enemies. There were prophecies before his death that said that he would regain his kingdom in the east, and this may have, after his death, led to the legends of his resurrection. There are also ideas that Nero was the inspiration for the beast in the Book of Revelations, as the beast is mortally wounded and then miraculously heals himself. And the number of the beast, 666, has been identified by some as the numerical value of the letters in Nero's name. Apparently Nero was long thought to be the Antichrist by some, which would make the whole beast thing make a little more sense. That's a pretty strange one, but ancient times were crazy. Quantum immortality is a fun and completely terrifying one.
I'm pretty sure I do know what quantum immortality is. And if it's not what it is, then I'm going to explain a whole new concept. So quantum immortality is a theory that if you're gonna die, like your body, it goes with multiverse theory, right? So if a multiverse is real, the theory is like if you're gonna die, like you're in a car, right? And like okay, so if you have a button right here, it has a 50% chance that you die. If you press it, and you cannot, the theory is basically saying that you cannot be in an existence where you're dead. Like your consciousness cannot possibly be in existence when you're dead. So if you die, then your consciousness goes to somewhere that you are alive in. So basically, like, if you press the button, your best friend can see you die, because in their universe, you're gonna die. But for you, in your consciousness, no matter how many times you press the button, you're actually going to live in your consciousness. So it's the theory that you may be actually immortal, but just in your consciousness, and you're just gonna keep sweeping through universes every time that you are gonna die in your universe. So I'm pretty sure that's what quantum immortality, that theory was. If not, that's a different theory. But it's pretty interesting, and no, that do not take it as fact. It is only a theory that really doesn't have any evidence behind it. So please do not go shoot yourself in the head going, I'm immortal. You know what I mean? Do not do that, please.
Will likely keep you up for many, many nights. So this theory combines quantum uncertainty, which is showcased in experiments like Schrodinger's cat, which we covered in episode 3, with the many worlds or multiverse theory. Before we get into this one, I have to say, don't try this at home. And if you are feeling down, please do always try and talk to someone. And I will try to summarize here, but it basically says that our consciousness always exists in a universe in which we're alive. So it says that no being can ever witness their own death, as the moment one is set to die, they are instantly conscious in another universe, and so they never witness their death in the current universe. So the idea is that all of the near-death experiences that people have were maybe actual death experiences in another universe. So you were conscious in this other universe, something dangerous was about to happen, and in that universe it actually did happen.
You could also maybe take this in as like a Mandela effect, you know, explanation or whatever. If you really want to go with stuff like that.
But your consciousness instantly jumped to another universe where things went slightly differently and it actually worked out. So from your perspective, it never actually happened. But from the perspective of anyone else in that universe, it was a tragic event. Of course, this is the kind of crazy theory that you can expect to get when you combine quantum uncertainty with a theory that says there are an infinite amount of universes and an infinite amount of possible different outcomes. Bit of a wild one to think about, but I did warn you. The Queensland tiger is a creature that is said to live in Queensland, Australia. It is described as a dog-sized feline with stripes and a long tail. It is said to be extremely vicious, and some people think it is the last survivor of the officially extinct Thylacoleo. It is known by the natives as Yari, with the earliest recorded sighting being in 1871. But according to the natives, it goes back a lot further than that. Red rain in Kerala. This was what was called a blood rain event that occurred in 1957 and 2001 in Kerala, India. As you can see, the rain collected was very blood-like, but thankfully it wasn't actually blood, or so they say. No, but for real though, it wasn't blood. It was initially thought that the rain was colored by radioactive fallout, but they later found out that this likely wasn't the cause of the color. The official theory said that the rain had been colored by airborne spores of green algae, which honestly sounds less believable than it actually being blood. The rain wasn't found to be particularly dangerous, and there are still quite a few theories as to what actually caused it. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre. This was the brutal murder of 7 members of Chicago's Irish North Side gang on
I know
Valentine's
this
Day
by Al Capone
1929. I can't show you
and
any
his gang.
of the images from this one, as they're just incredibly brutal, but feel free to look them up yourself.
This is by Al
The
Capone and
7
his
men
gang,
were
right?
gathered in a garage in Lincoln Park on the morning of February the 14th. They were all lined up against a wall, and they were all shot dead. The shooters were 4 unknown assailants, 2 of whom were actually dressed as police officers, and they were never caught or identified. This event likely stemmed from the rivalry between the Irish gang in the north, which was led by George Bugs Moran, and their Italian rivals led by Al Capone.
Yep.
Al Capone was largely
Yeah, this is a big thing about Al Capone, because Al Capone, bro, he's a very weird figure, because he'd do shit like this. He'd literally like murder a man, and then he'd be going around, and he was like a neighborhood celebrity. He would be just walking around and like pretend to be Santa for kids or whatever. But like this is like I think this was like a real breaking point when this hit the news of like, oh shit, this guy Al Capone, he's like really bad. Like people really started to process just how bad this guy was, of like the true nature of the criminal world and stuff. And yeah, he eventually got done in for tax evasion. Because that's the only thing they could 100% definitively prove him on, and he got the biggest punishment for a tax evader ever, because they were basically punishing him for all the crimes that they knew he did, but they couldn't really directly connect him to, largely thanks to him, paying off all the police on a Wilson Fisk type scenario.
thought to be responsible for these killings, but he was never convicted of them. The gang members that died were lured to the garage with the lie of purchasing several shipments of illegal whiskey. Al Capone likely planned on killing
Prohibition
Bugs Moran
times.
there, but only his subordinates showed up for the deal. This is a really brutal one, but it is gang life, I suppose. Seth Rich. This was the murder of Seth Rich in 2016, Washington, D.C. He was shot twice in the back and died an hour later. There were a few theories about this one of which stemmed from the fact that Seth was an employee of the DNC, or Democratic National Committee. For those who don't know, this is the committee or company behind the Democratic Party. So there were people saying that the Republicans killed him in this crazy plot. There were others saying that the Democrats killed him because maybe he had information about the party that he was going to leak. But from what I can tell, these theories are all just likely nonsense, and Seth was likely just killed in a robbery gone wrong. But if it was a targeted killing, maybe that's what they'd make it look like, but who knows. Stephen Smith. This was the murder of 19-year-old Stephen Smith in 2015. In the middle of a road in Hampton County, South Carolina, Stephen was found dead at 3 a.m. and it's still undetermined whether he was shot or was the victim of a hit and run. The case largely went cold on this one for a while, but after the murders of Maggie and Paul Murdoch in 2021, there were some rumors that their son might have been in a secret relationship with Stephen Smith in 2015. This reopened the case, but not much is known to the public about how legitimate this claim actually was, or what other evidence they have regarding Stephen Smith's death. The stone chambers of New England. So New England is somewhat known for its old stone walls and stone structures. Just to name a few, there is the America's Stonehenge in New Hampshire, Calendar 2 in Vermont, Gungywump in Connecticut, Queen's Fort in Rhode Island, and the Upton Chamber in Massachusetts. There are roughly 700 stone chambers spread out all across New England, and they aren't really found anywhere else in North America. These are incredibly well built if you look into the details of them, and they often contain features like ventilation holes for smoke and shelves and benches built directly into the stone. No one fully knows who built.
I'd imagine my first impression would be there was some Native American civilization in that area that built these.
Them. And although European settlers kind of make sense, many of the early text from the settlers describes finding these structures when they arrived. So it may have been the Native Americans, but there's little evidence for that either, as typically they don't tend to build structures like this. One other theory is that they were built by traveling Celts.
I mean, but Native Americans aren't like one big conglomerate, you know, there was all types of Native American civilizations. It's not ridiculous to say that one of them built structures compared to others that were more nomadic, you know what I mean?
Way back in the Bronze Age, as the Celtic Europeans are well known for their stone structures. But this one is still a mystery. Tara Kaliko was a 19-year-old American woman who went missing near her home in New Mexico, 1988. She was out on her daily bike ride at 9:30 a.m. when she failed to return home. Her mum went out to look for her, but after finding nothing, she called the police. Her and her bike were never found, and sadly, no one witnessed the abduction. Almost a year later, a Polaroid was found in the parking lot of a convenience store. I don't think I can show the photograph on YouTube, but if you want to see it, just search for it. I'm sure it'll pop up.
Oh, I know what it is. It's the photo. She's has like duct tape over her mouth, and she's like very clearly kidnapped. She has like duct tape over her mouth, and she's like tied up. And it was found. It was a photograph out in the parking lot of a convenience store, which is horrifying, bro. How like. Imagine being the person who found that. Like, what the fuck? And like, how does that end up there? Like, what is the explanation? Why did they just leave a photo around? All types of mystery behind that, yeah.
The photo basically shows a woman and a boy bound and gagged with black tape in the back of a van. The woman, while not obviously Tara, could potentially be her, as they do bear a fair bit of resemblance. The woman and the boy in the Polaroid were never identified, but Tara's mother strongly believes this to be her. She was never found and was declared dead by homicide in 1998. But just last month, the sheriff's office announced a breakthrough in the case, and they were submitting a review to move forward with potential charges. But the identity of the suspect involved is remaining anonymous until the charges go through. There are a lot of...
It's been 2 years since this video got uploaded, so maybe they actually have some updates on the case.
These being solved just as I make a video, which is a good thing. The Tonome is a Japanese spirit or yokai that appears and often scares or attacks people. Its eyes are not on its face, but rather on the palms of its hands. They first appeared in Gazu Hyaka.
That might be a little inspiration. You know, I've seen the movie Pan's Labyrinth. There's a guy like that where he has eyes on his hands. He does this.
By Toriyama Sekin in 1776, but they have been scaring children and me ever since. The most mysterious song on the internet. This was a...
Is this the song I'm thinking of? Ulterior Motives? Because if so, it's been found now. It's been found definitively. And it's been found to the point where it was in the Backrooms movie. It was in the movie The Backrooms. And we know the original creator. We have the full original mix now. It's a big find. And yeah, so the Ulterior Motives, it's a song. It was called people were calling it Everybody Knows That, because the first snippet that was found, that was the main lyric in it. It was lost media. We had a little snippet of it, and it was found in an adult video, if you know what I mean, from like the 80s, an 80s adult video, which is really hilarious, which most likely means the original person who was searching for it found it in that video and didn't want to admit that that's where they found it. So this whole search went on just because that guy didn't want to admit to it, which is hilarious. But yeah, now it's been definitively found since this video, so mark this one off the list. It's not mysterious anymore.
Song likely recorded in 1984, but who the artist is completely unknown. It was recorded from a radio program.
I have it in my liked
Jersey
songs,
by
actually.
Darius S. All the other songs on the tape that he recorded that day have been identified, except for this one. Over 20 years later, his sister for
Wait, no, this is a different song. This is not Ulterior Motives. This is Like the Wind. And I think this one has been found too. I'm pretty sure this one has been found, but this is a different Most Mysterious song. Yeah, there's been multiple songs they called the Most Mysterious song because people don't know what they are. I think this one has been found too. I think it. Let me make sure. Like the Wind. That song is the song that she's talking about now. That's playing in the background. Yeah, they're playing it now. Yeah, it's been found. Wait. Hmm. Yep, it's been found as of a year ago. So a year after this video came out, it's been found. There you go. Marty's one off the list still. So I thought it was a different Most Mysterious song, but yeah, this one also has been found.
was
Cool.
hell-bent on finding the artist of this song. So she posted a digitalized version online and doesn't
Lost media mysteries are better to get a thing to get into than like true crime mysteries because one, they don't matter as much, you know. When you're talking about people's murders and stuff, it's like a really big deal. When it's talking about just like a song from the 80s needs to get found, there's not as much stakes behind it and stuff. But also they get found a lot more often, bro. Like we get shit solved a lot more often in the lost media community. Like a lot of lost media has actually been found from the people who are interested in it, and it's really cool.
of users got to work trying to find the song's author. In the process of this, they actually found many other hidden songs, but they never actually found out who made this one. I'll include a link to the song in the description if you want to check it out. Maybe you can solve the puzzle of the most mysterious song on the internet. The Westfield Watcher. This is a creepy one. In June 2014, Derek and Maria Broadus bought a family home in Westfield, New Jersey. This was an expensive home in a pretty rich, safe neighborhood, and they moved in with their 3 children. 3 days after buying the house, a strange letter appeared in the mailbox. The letter read, 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. It is now my time. Do you know the history of
I'm out. Dude, I get that shit in my mail. You are never seeing me at this house again. I am dipping, bro. I am moving across the country. Nope, not risking it. Get out of there.
the house? Do you know what lies behind the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out. It creepily went on to mention details about the family's minivan, their renovation plans, and even their children. It was signatured
get the hell out. Get the hell out.
So Derek, of course, called the police, and after contacting the previous owners of the house, they too said they had received a similar letter just days before they moved out. But since they were moving out anyway, they just disregarded and threw away the letter. So the Broadus family went on high alert for a few weeks, but eventually another letter came through, this time addressing the Broadus family by name. It even listed changes that they had made to the house, and listed their children by their nicknames and their birth dates. Super creepy. It went on to ask about one child who often painted on the porch. Is she the artist in the family? The letter asked. All of the windows and doors in 657 Boulevard allow me to watch you and track you as you move through the house. Who am I? I am the Watcher, and have been in control of 657 Boulevard.
What are you, the fucking
part of 2 decades now.
What are you, for Marvel?
The family turned it over to you as it was their time to move on, and they kindly sold it when I asked them to. They eventually got the FBI involved, but there was very little evidence to actually go off anywhere. The Broadus family actually considered tearing the house down and just building a new one, but this prompted a rather threatening letter from the Watcher. Maybe a car accident, maybe a fire, maybe something as simple as a mild illness that never seems to go away, but makes you feel sick day after day after day after day after day. Maybe the mysterious death of a pet. Loved ones suddenly die. Planes and cars and bicycles crash. Bones break. You wonder who the Watcher is? Turn around, idiots. So eventually in 2019, they sold the house at a $500,000 loss. This story was apparent.
Yeah, oh yeah, $500,000 loss. Yeah, no one's buying this fucking house if they. I'm not buying a fucking house that has a guy stalking me, dude. That's the. Yeah, bro. Yeah, I mean, that's a way to get a cheap house right there, motherfucker. I'm getting away. No one's buying this fucking house.
So interesting.
I'm not buying. I'm not buying a house anywhere near this house. I'll have you know, actually.
Netflix won the rights to make a series out of it after a bidding war between 6 other studios. The Watcher was never identified, and to this day, this mysterious figure remains a mystery. The tomb of Genghis Khan has been the subject of speculation for many
we don't know where he's buried.
Many years. He was one of the greatest, most brutal, violent leaders in all of history. In his lifetime in the 13th century, his Mongol Empire invaded and ruled most of Asia and a good chunk of Europe. He died in 1227, but he asked to be buried without markings or signs. So where his body is actually buried, we have no idea. The Uncanny Valley origins. This is the
Very interesting topic for me. Very interesting topics. I know the Uncanny Valley is, when people get really scared when something is almost human, but not quite, not quite. You can something's off, but it's not like fully not human, but it's a bit off. And we don't know why we're scared of that, which kind of brings a lot of theories into why the main scary one is that there was some creature, alien creature maybe, or some, skinwalker, shapeshifter or something that, something that made it where evolutionarily we had to be scared of something that looked human but wasn't quite. The movie Obsession uses it very well. They put some makeup on Nikki in that movie during mainly the scene where she's like, if you've seen the movie, she's like, I have a feeling you don't love me as much as I do. She has makeup on her that makes her very uncanny looking, so it makes it very creepy, you know what I mean, where she doesn't look quite right.
relationship between how much an object resembles a human being and our emotional response to that object. For example, fully natural humans are quite normal to us, and obviously inhuman things like fluffy toys, dogs, and rocks are quite normal to us as well. But the weird part is when we get things that act or look almost human, like AI robots or creepy dolls.
Show some examples, pussy. Show some examples, pussy.
Terrifying. This hypothesis was first introduced by robotics professor Masahiro Mori. This was in 1970, and it has been picking up support ever since. I think it's quite a sound theory, as this really creeps me out. The Vela incident was a double flash of light detected by an American Vela satellite system in 1979. This was in the Indian Ocean, and the cause of this double flash is officially unknown. But we all know what officially unknown means. It is thought by some to be an undeclared nuclear test carried out by South Africa and Israel, as the previous 41 double flashes detected by the Vela satellite were all caused by nuclear tests. The officials say they don't know what caused it. Maybe it was a nuclear test, and maybe it was a small piece of rock hitting into the satellite, which, that totally sounds credible. But the details of this case are still classified by the United States government. Why Cracker Barrel fired Brad's wife? This one's kind of hilarious.
This is an OG internet, bro. If you're late 2010, mid to late 2010s internet, bro, this is a classic story. I haven't seen this been brought up in a minute, buddy. In a minute.
Yes. After Bradley Reed's wife was fired by Cracker Barrel, which is a food place, I guess, Bradley posted on the Cracker Barrel's Facebook page asking why they had fired her. This led to a internet meme of some sort, and soon there were hundreds of people online asking why they had fired her. There were dozens of posts on all of their pages saying stuff like, "We demand answers for Brad and his wife," and #Justice for Brad's wife. Soon there was a petition started Reddit that amassed over 17,000 signatures, and various other restaurants chimed in saying they would hire Brad's wife. Eventually, after realizing he had started something that he kind of wish he hadn't, Brad asked everyone to stop harassing the restaurant, and it just kind of died out from there. No one to this day knows why Cracker Barrel fired Brad's wife, but this was still a fun one. Why the Tyrannosaurus Rex had tiny arms. This sounds like the first line to a joke. So the
That's actually a great point. I've never even considered why the hell they had such small arms.
T-Rex, that was one of the most fearsome dinosaurs to ever live, had strangely, hilariously, really tiny arms. This was one of the more aggressive and terrifying beasts.
Like, why even
but
have arms
had
at that
one of
point?
the smallest arm-to-body ratios of any dinosaur in the Mesozoic era. It's not entirely clear why their arms were so small, what they even used them for, or whether given a few more million years of evolution, their arms would have disappeared entirely, as they did with snakes. But I suppose when you've got a jaw like this, you don't really need arms. The willpower paradox is a really interesting one. If you've ever tried to do something you really want to do, but for some reason you just can't will yourself to do it. Maybe it's going gym, maybe it's studying when you know you should, maybe it's giving up or even taking up a habit. It's kind of a tricky one because it's often said that you can't, for instance, will yourself out of an addiction or will your mental health problems away. Yet, often to cure these ills, it requires the person to be willing. Therapy, for instance, often doesn't work if the person just doesn't want to be there. You kind of have to be willing to trust that certain methods will work without really using will in those methods themselves. You have to set up the space and environment with will, but then kind of trust that the environment will fix your problems without you hard forcing them. It's a very strange dynamic, and it has often confused many people, myself included, who honestly try to do their best with sheer will, but fall short of their will. And it's something we are all getting better at. The wormhole theory says that there are theoretical passages through space-time that could lead to shortcuts across the universe. The general idea I will expertly demonstrate on this piece of paper here. So say this is the
Yeah, you always have to do it. I can explain wormhole stuff with this tissue here that I have. Let me rip apart of it that doesn't have my fucking snot on it. So you have, hold up. Oh god. Yeah, so you have this, right? This is space-time, right? You want to get from here to here, but that's really far away. So you have to do this. Boom. And make a wormhole, so now they're both really close. There you go. That's what you do. That's how you make a wormhole, and it's used in a bunch of science fiction and stuff because without wormhole technology, it's basically going to be impossible for us to do like intergalactic travel or whatever. So if you're going to make any... If we're planning on ever basically going across the galaxy at any reasonable time period, you're gonna have to use wormholes, or else even if we make light speed ships, they're gonna take like 40 years to get to the nearest star.
universe. For these purposes, it is on a 2D plane, and to get from point A to point B requires you to travel this distance to get there. But in theory, if you were able to bend space-time, instead of having to travel this entire distance, you would only have to travel this small distance between the two wormholes, and you would come out on the opposite end of the universe. They were first theorized in 1916, and over the years, Albert Einstein and Nathan Rosen expanded on this idea. These were bridges, possibly between black holes and newly theorized white holes. The black holes would be the entrance, sucking everything in, and the exit would be these white holes, and between them, they would allow travel across the universe. They became known as Einstein-Rosen bridges, or wormholes. This is still purely theoretical, and although the theory of relativity does predict these, we haven't observed one yet. There are also other complications in this, like needing a certain amount of anti-gravity matter in order to keep the wormhole from collapsing in on itself, but that's a whole nother story for a whole nother Star Trek episode. Yeah, Beebus 1. This was an NES game first mentioned in June 1989 in an issue of Video Games and
Media.
Computer Entertainment. There doesn't actually seem to be any evidence that this game existed, even after being mentioned 3 more times in later issues of the magazine. It is thought that maybe they put the game in there to take up some white space on the page, or they put it in there to catch anyone who is copying their list, as since the game was entirely made made up, it would
That's a
catch
good
anyone who
tactic.
was plagiarizing it. Or maybe it was just a joke by someone at the company. But to this day, the game's existence remains unconfirmed. Yeti. So I've covered the North American version of this one, the Bigfoot, in previous episodes. And the Yeti is very similar in appearances to Bigfoot, but often just a little shorter at around 6 foot. It is a character in ancient legends and folklore of the Himalayan people and all throughout Asia. And funnily enough, Alexander the Great apparently demanded to see a Yeti when he conquered the Indus Valley. This was all the way back in 326 BC, but the locals told him they were unable to present him with one, as the Yeti could not survive at such low altitudes. The name, the Abominable Snowman, came from a 1921 journalist, who mistranslated the local name for the legend. It correctly translates as Man-Bear Snowman, but he translated it as Filthy Snowman, and he thought abominable sounded better than filthy, so he posted the legend as the Abominable Snowman, and thus the name was born. There have been many sightings over the years of the apparent Yeti roaming around various mountain ranges all throughout Asia, but to this day none have been captured. The zombie EAS hijacking was a suspicious local area emergency message that went out in 2013 in several stations in Montana and Michigan. They displayed a warning of a zombie apocalypse, and the message seemed pretty legit. I'll leave the full text of the message in a comment below, but apparently it was a hijack, apparently. And the hacker was caught the next day. Or it was a cover-up and everyone involved was silenced, which is totally possible. Baikal seals are these super cute seals, although let's be real, all seals are super cute, who only live
Facts.
in the waters of Lake Baikal in southern Siberia. These seals are thought to have inhabited the lake for roughly 2 million years, but it's still a mystery as to how they got there. Theories range from them swimming upstream from the Arctic over many, many years, eventually ending up in the lake, to the lake once being directly connected to the ocean, which formed as a lake after it was disconnected from the Arctic, and after these seals had made their home there. But the mystery of these cute little seals still today remains a mystery. Michaela Bali. This was the sad case of a 16-year-old girl who went missing in Saskatchewan, Canada in 2016. She was last seen at a bus stop, but no clues as to her whereabouts have been found since. Almost her entire day up to her disappearance has been tracked and documented.
I think I know about this. I think Blame It on Jorge did a video about this, about her case. I'm pretty sure. And I think there's some evidence that she was caught in like a human trafficking situation, which is very sad.
And theories of her disappearance range from her running away, which didn't seem likely as she left a bunch of her emergency money and medication behind, to her being kidnapped by someone she met online, as she often used a bunch of different apps to connect with new people and make new friends. And although there have been quite a few tips and sightings over the years, none of them panned out, and to this day, Michaela Bali is still missing. And that is all we have time for. I really hope you enjoyed exploring the second tier of the Unsolved Mystery Iceberg with me. Feel free to check out each new video as...
Okay, so there we go. We're done with Tier 2 of the Ultimate Unsolved Mysteries Iceberg by Connor's Curiosities. Once again, make sure you subscribe to this original creator. Great videos, great research. I'm sure these videos take a long-ass time to make. And yeah, we are going to eventually react to Tier 3 of this iceberg. It's not going to take me 2 years this time, I promise. And we're going to go through this entire thing. And yeah, I have other videos on this channel talking about similar topics, unsolved mysteries, true crime and stuff like that. You can watch throughout this channel. And I also have a fuck ton of other channels because I like to just separate my topics that I react to into different channels to see what you're interested in. You can subscribe to what you're interested in. They'll all be in the description. And that'll be it. Make sure to subscribe because this channel just got monetization. Yay. And yeah, click on one of the videos on screen now.